Welcome to the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast with your host, hailing from Kokona, Wisconsin, riding a CST Tires SSI Decals Traveling Back Yamaha YFZ 450R, four-time ATV Motocross National Champion, number 25, Kory Jansen.
What's up, everybody? We're back. I'm your host, Kory Jansen. Welcome to episode 65 of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, CST Tires, available for purchase and in stock today at shop.csttires.com. And we have an epic, highly anticipated episode for you tonight. The history of ATV racing cannot be told without the inclusion of Kory Ellis. During his professional career, which started in the early 90s and concluded in the mid-2000s, Kory Ellis pioneered ATV racing into the future multiple different times. He competed against every professional ATV national champion in the sport's history, from Gentry and Denton to Wienen, with the only exception being Joel Hetrick, and Kory is connected to just about everyone in ATV racing, past and present, making this episode and the following episode a can't-miss ATV racing history extravaganza. Kory Ellis is a legend, an icon, and a pioneer, and it didn't take long after we sat down with Kory to realize that there was no way this was going to be a one-episode conversation. So you hear the first half of this two-part show in the episode ahead, and we'll plan to drop part 2 with Kory Ellis in the next few days prior to the ATV Motocross National Championship banquet. But let me tell you right now, this is some of the best content we've ever produced here at Digging Deep, so get excited. Let's give a quick shout out to our sponsors, and remember that these companies are prioritizing, valuing, and supporting ATV racing with the support of our show. So if you like what we're doing, the best thing that you can do is support these great companies. Major thanks to CST Tires. Go to shop.csttires.com today. Yamaha thanks to Blue Crew, Valvoline, Ssi Decals, DID Racing Chain, Numera Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Impact Solutions, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, Forworks Carbon, DP Brakes, Gripped Gloves, Factory 43, Bike Strikes and Quads LLC, and Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. Their clippers rock, their nose hair trimmer is amazing, and their brand new Lawnmower 4.0 electric trimmer is next level. It's no longer a secret that Manscaped is my go-to for keeping a perfect beard. The Lawnmower 4.0's light, guard, and array of adjustments makes it the perfect package. I've been absolutely loving this thing, and you will too. So check out Manscaped. I wish I would have sooner. Get 20% off with free shipping by using code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. Support all these great companies that support us, and for any products that fall through the cracks, click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website to help us out. As we transition into the off season, we both know you need parts and gear. No matter what off-road gear or parts you need, Rocky Mountain ATVMC has you covered. But before you buy, simply click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website, and by accessing Rocky Mountain from our specific link, you get all your gear and parts needs met, while we get a percentage of what you buy on the back end. This is such an easy and convenient way to help us out. So click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner at diggingdeepatvmx.com to help us out while satisfying your gear and parts needs this off season. We can't thank you enough for that. Shout out to Justin Branham for his most recent donation and his reoccurring support of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. Justin also earned himself a Jeffrey Rastrelli autographed jersey for his performance in Digging Deep ATVMX Fantasy this past season. I can promise you won't want to miss playing ATV Fantasy with us in 2022. Thanks again, Justin. And for anyone else interested in donating, you can find the Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee donation links on our website if you're interested in donating to support our efforts. Thanks so much, guys. Now, the 30-second board is up, it's sideways, and the gate is down. Time to dig deep. Let's go. All right, guys, tonight's guest is one that so many of you have anticipated for a while, and one I've been excited about for some time now, so I don't want to wait another moment to introduce this ATV racing legend. Brought to you by our friends at Yamaha and their podium-proven, industry-leading Yamaha YFZ 450R. For more info on Yamaha's full off-road lineup, visit YamahaOutdoors.com, YamahaBlueCrew.com, or Yamaha Outdoors on social media today. Making his highly anticipated debut here on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast is a man you can't tell the story of ATV racing without. ATV racing pioneer and legend himself. Say hello to Mr. Kory Ellis. Kory, thanks so very much for being here with us. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Oh, thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be on here. I listen all the time, and it keeps me in tune with what's going on at the Nationals, even though I can't be there as much as I want to be, that's for sure.
Yeah. You and I chatted a few different times about getting you on here, and it's awesome to finally make this happen. And so many of our fans and listeners have been clamoring for us to get you on, I think since we started Digging Deep.
Well, thanks for having me.
So we're going to tell your story here on this episode, Kory. And man, you were around for a really long time in the sport. You saw a bunch of huge changes take place throughout your tenure, obviously in ATV racing. So I'm super stoked to dive into your career. And for you, it's got to be fun to talk about and relive the glory days, I would think.
Yeah. It's funny. I feel like I was there a long time sometimes. And then I look back now, like Chad winning 8 championships, and I'm like, geez, the last time I went to a national, I'm trying to think, it's been a couple of years now, but for how long, like Chad's been going now, it's like, I feel like I've been out of it kind of for a long time, even though I felt like I was there a long time, I think definitely, when I was there, that was probably my time there, like with Doug and Timmy and a lot of other people, that there was just a huge change from when I started going to the Nationals till when I left. That was just, since then it's been pretty consistently, production bikes and things like that. So there hasn't changed a whole lot since then, but from the time I started till the time I left, it was night and day difference. Whether it was bikes, riders, and just the factories. There was so much stuff that just came and went and stayed, some things.
Yeah. When you started, when you got into it, and we'll get into this as we tell your story here, but when you started, it was at basically pretty close to the very beginning of this whole thing of ATV racing. And by the end, it was the factory heyday of all the semis and everything else. So yeah, you saw every era. You've raced everybody. So that's why I think that your story is so cool and you have so many stories to tell. But before we go back to the beginning of the story, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about things here in the here and now in the present, Kory. So how is life? You're working at GBC, I know. How are things there? And what else are you up to these days?
So I've been working at GVC, Power Sports Tires, or Greenball Corporation is the parent company, for about 10 years now, 10 and a half years.
Okay.
So that's been cool. It's, when I started working there, I kind of barely knew who they were. They sponsored WPSA, but I didn't really even realize it. And when I started there, actually Wes Miller is the one who told me they were hiring and got me the interview and I got the job there as a sales guy. And then I went in, it was, I didn't know what I was kind of doing at the time. And as far as what I was going to do with my life at that point a little bit.
Right. Yep.
And when I got there, I was like, hey, I've done race support. I've done this, I've done that, sponsorship and all this other stuff. And it kind of just snowballed. And now I'm just trying to think of my title. It just got changed again. Okay. I'm director of GBC Motorsports, so kind of oversee everything on that side. But we wear many hats. We're not a huge corporation, so I do a lot of stuff. So yesterday we were out shooting. We have a light truck line that's under our corporate umbrella, Kanai Tires. So yesterday we were out at Sand Hollow shooting Jeep stuff for a TV show all day. And then today we're going to go out and shoot some side-by-side stuff, plus all my emails and rider support and everything else I'm trying to do. So I got my hands full, but it's been good. It's grown quite a bit. The company's grown quite a bit since I've been there, and it's been a really awesome ride so far.
That's awesome. I was prepared to touch on this later we got, kind of more to the end of your story, but that's everybody's dream, right? Is to kind of find a job within the industry so you can use all the stuff that you learned inside the industry and in doing this racing thing for 20 years to be able to bring that to your professional life. And sponsorship, the industry, tires, and now you're doing just about a little bit of everything. Like that is kind of everybody's dream, because like you just touched on 10 years ago, you kind of didn't know what path you were going to be on. Then you find your way into this and you can use everything you learned. Like that makes so much sense, but that finding yourself and how you're going to take all those talents and bring it to the workforce or a job is a tough thing to figure out. So it's awesome that you found a way to utilize all that.
Yeah. It's, and I would say typically almost all industry jobs don't pay the best, but if you have a passion for it, it makes up for it on that side of it for sure. So, I mean, it's something I love and I've always done. I've always been into the racing stuff. So my passion's there for it, but I'm probably not, if I owned a concrete company or something, I'd be making a lot of money. But it has its positives and negatives, being in the industry. A lot of people in the industry don't make a ton of money, but they enjoy what they do. So that's, like going out yesterday, like I said, and, off-roading all day. And today, after I get some work done, we're going to go out and off-road today. So it's kind of like, you do have some freedom and you have some fun side on that stuff, but it's also still some work.
Well, there's some worth or whatever in enjoying what you do. And that's exactly what you're getting at right now. Yeah. So you're working 9 to 5 and hating your life while you were doing it. Like that's not worth anything to me.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife would probably want me to have 9 to 5 job because I'd be home a little more, but
hey, that's the other thing about an industry job is like, it never shuts off when you're in a role like that. Like it's all day, every day.
Yeah. It's 8:00 at night and people are calling me and texting me and, or it's a Saturday or Sunday. She's like, turn your phone off. And I'm just like, well, I'm trying to get something done. It's, like last weekend, it's GNCC final and I'm watching the race and she's like, it's Saturday. And I'm like, I'm trying to watch the race, and see who wins the championship and this and that. And, so it has positives and negatives for sure. But
hey, not only that, but the work you don't get done on Saturday or Sunday, it's just more work on Monday. Like that's how I look at it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best part. It just never stops.
So talk about, and I didn't plan on touching on this either, but GBC has Walker Fowler, and that had to be a huge thing for you guys.
Yeah, that the Walker thing kind of, we sponsor Heartland Challenge. It's a 10-hour endurance race in Iowa. Been doing it, I think, now 12, 13 years, something like that. And Walker's been coming and, Maxis was paying him, I think, to come and be the Maxis guy there and stuff. But the Walker, Johnny Gallagher, you can't talk about GBC without talking about Johnny Gallagher for one thing too. Johnny's been our trackside rep. He's been there a little longer than I have. And Johnny just bleeds GBC. He's an awesome guy. He knows everybody, and him and Walker would team up at Heartland. And, we got to know Walker in far as our company, because we always had the owner would come to the race, our salespeople to the race. And we'd always bring a lot of employees to the race just so they can see what we actually do, and what's going on. And, everybody kind of fell in love with Walker, and Walker is just, how Walker is. I mean, if you've met Walker, Walker, and he's just, he's a great guy, and everybody kind of fell in love with him. And his contract was expiring, and things always change, with sponsorship. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down, and basically, it was a big commitment for us. But it came down to, I think, more anything that the owner loved Walker and just like, I just want to have him. Like it was like, I just love the guy. Let's just, he's part of our family. Felt like already. So like, let's just bring him in. And it's been a really good fit. Walker's an awesome guy, great spokesman. Yeah. Plus he goes out and wins a lot too. So,
right.
So it was a good deal, and we've had him now. I think this is the 4th year we've had Walker, and, 4th championship in a row, and he's on a, 7-run championship right now. So he's doing awesome.
Yeah, good guy to have, obviously. And the one thing about Walker, like, not only does he win, not only is he one of the greats, obviously, but he knows how to promote his sponsors. And it's like relatively authentic. Like he just does a really good job. And there's some guys out there that you could probably spend the money to have, you know, whoever in GNCC, there's nobody bigger than Walker. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But there's guys that you could sponsor winning races or whatever in other disciplines, obviously. And I'm not saying ATV racing, but that wouldn't necessarily be the spokesman you want them to be. And Walker like is the entire package.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's people like, especially we do a lot of side-by-side stuff too.
Okay.
And there's people out there that, you know, may win a lot of races, but they're the worst with promoting themselves. And we got people that promote so good and they might not finish half the time. And it's like, sometimes you're like, I'd rather have that guy that doesn't finish, but is out there bleeding my product and talking to people in the pits, and the guy that wins and just turns around and walks away from the fans or has an attitude. So, yeah, I mean, no matter if you're a side-by-side guy, ATV guy, or I mean, a professional bowler or anything, if you're not, I mean, that's why, you know, John was so great at Tally, because like you said, always said, oh, people's champ, you know, and the kids loved him. I mean, John always took time with everybody. And that was one of the really awesome things about John was he, you know, especially I think later in his career, you know, the second half of his career, he really became familiar with that and made the time for those people. And that was awesome to see. I think at the beginning he was more a little hot-headed and, you know, out there to win. And, you know, he was still a nice guy, but I think in that second half, he really grew up and became more of a personality and people, you know, walk up and talk to him. And that makes a big difference no matter who you are, if you're a pro or even if you're an amateur out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he knew how to play the card of, you know, that people's champ thing. So as that kind of progressed and it gained more and more momentum, he powered into it, you know. Yeah. But I tell people, so he had it figured out 10 years ago. Now, like I tell people, like in 2021, you know, the on-track performance is really only a piece of the puzzle, you know, like what you bring to the table with your social media, with your promotion, with what you do at the track, with people you talk to and fans and brand awareness and all that stuff. Like that is literally just as important as if you're winning on the weekend. Like that, I mean, like you said, like winning might not even be the most important part.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, sometimes I'm like, I wish social media was a little heavier when I was, you know, racing, you know, heavy. Yeah. And other times I think about the stuff that we did off track, and I'm like, I'm glad there's no social media, you know. I mean, there's a lot of stories out there. We had a lot of fun back in the day.
Right. Yeah, for sure. But yes, like people have that promotion you know, kind of device, or they have that ability at their hands, like at their fingertips today with social media. It's just how serious you're going to take it. So when somebody, I'm sure like you're taking resumes or whatever, and there's people that, you know, want the world and don't want to do anything in return. And that's just not how it works. Like you need to be willing to, you know, do this, that, and everything for somebody when they're going to sponsor you, because sponsorship is dollars coming out of GBC's pocket in hopes that that sponsored rider is going to help promote sales. And I don't think enough people take that seriously enough.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's a very good point how it is these days. You know, you really have to do a lot of self promotion, and it means a lot. You know, that goes a long ways. For sure. Yeah. I think that everybody feels like they're owed something, but that's a topic for another day. Let's get into the racing, pal. So take me back to the very beginning. How were you first introduced to ATVs? I'm trying to think. I had a little mini dirt bike for a little bit. Okay. And then my neighbor is about 5 years older than me. He got a 250R. I think it had to be an 87 250R or an 86. Okay. And that thing was just the coolest thing to me. And so I was like, I need a quad. My parents got me an LT80, and we had some. I lived in Washington State, and we had some logging roads by our house, and we'd ride the logging roads and stuff. And then my parents started taking me out a little bit more, and my dad got tired of watching me, so he ended up buying a LT250, and then I had another friend. You know, I was riding that 80, and then I started riding the 250 because I was like 10 years old riding the LT80, and I was huge on the thing, and I kept breaking axles and stuff. So anyways, my buddy took me to a local hare scrambles race, or it was basically a dirt circle track, but with like a roller in it. It's kind of a TT thing. Okay. And I just saw him racing quads, and I'm like, I got to do this. So I went home, talked to my dad, and next race we were out there I was riding the 250 a bunch then. I was like 10 years old, almost 11, I think. And I went out there and raced a LT 250, and so I just kind of fell in love with it. I'm like, we got to do this all the time. And most of the races were AMA, and I wasn't old enough to race 250. So that summer, we went and bought a RM80, took the motor out of it and put in an LT 250 chassis so I could go race AMA and race some flat track stuff.
Oh my gosh.
So, the flat track, I didn't have much fun. I always like kind of jumping and stuff. So we went to the flat track we went to was indoor, and they would change the track every weekend. They would build an arena cross track for the next weekend. So we're like, let's go do arena cross. And as soon as I raced out, like, this is awesome. Let's go more races. So we raced arena cross that winter. And then when summer came, we started riding motocross, and it just it went from there. And
it just snowballed.
Rode that 80 for a couple of years, and then finally got, I think it was about 13 or 14. There was no AMA for motocross, so it was all just kind of unsanctioned. So I could ride 250. So we started riding 250. Then I was about 13, 14.
Okay. So it all happened pretty fast though. Like you went from riding to racing to being on a 250 right away. It kind of all happened fast. I knew you were a Pacific Northwest guy. Did that, like, I always felt like you were a good mud rider. Did that have anything to do with that? Or would you have called yourself a good mud rider?
I honestly, I think I was a horrible mud rider. I hated the mud. I think it might've been growing up in the mud. Like this local series the place I first raced at, the big thing that they had is like, if you won the championship, you got like a 6-foot trophy.
Okay.
Like
I remember that being a big thing locally here when I was a kid too.
Yeah. And it was like, and you had to run almost all the races to get to win the championship. So it's Pacific Northwest in the winter. It freaking rains nonstop. So, I mean, half the races were just mud bogs. I mean, it was just horrible, but I got to the point, I think I got tired of the mud. I was just like, I hate the mud. And I felt like I never did good. Like at nationals, I felt like I never did good in mud. I just despised it. I just hated it by then, but yeah, it was interesting growing up in the Northwest. And that was partly why I ended up moving to California later on, was because the year I moved, it rained it was the rainiest year ever. I think it was 156 days in a row of measurable rain.
Oh my gosh, that is ridiculous.
And luckily the place that I practiced at was where they dredged the Columbia River, and it was sand. So I could go. I just basically put my gear on, leave my house, go over there, unload my bike, and put in a couple motos in the rain, in the sand, and then load back up and go home and take my gear off and
that's
wash everything.
Yeah, that sucks the fun out of it pretty fast, Kory.
Yeah.
So as we start to transition into you, like, because you move south to California or whatever, but if my memory serves me correctly, and I don't know if it would have been at this time yet, but you were connected with Legger almost from the very start, right? So tell me how that happens, because again, like, you were a Legger guy forever.
Yeah. So what happened was, so I started racing the Mickeys back in 92 was the first year I went. And right when we started Mickeys, I think it was before we started Mickeys, I broke the bike I was riding. I just trashed the frame on it, just finally just disintegrated all at once on that LT 250.
Okay.
And about that time, JP Racing, which was an aftermarket chassis company, which eventually became Lone Star.
Yep.
They started making an LT 250 frame and everything. So I was like, well, let's just buy that. And it's going to last forever. We'll just run that.
Okay.
So we bought that and started racing the Mickeys. And I think I raced 2 races. Then the next year in 93, I think it was 92, 93. We went to the first Mickeys, and Mark Legger's there with this chassis on display, and looking at the bike I had. And then you look over at this Legger bike, like the JP one. Yeah, it was way better in stock, but you look at the Legger bike and it was like the welds were better, and like,
sure.
And pretty much everybody started kind of riding it. Was like, man, that thing's awesome. Well, throughout that season, my parents kind of became friends with Mark and Susie, and we started kind of hanging out at the races, and we ordered a frame like halfway through the races, and it took a while to get one. So we built a legger bike that off season. And as we went to more races, my parents and leggers became really good friends. It started going out, like they went to like a NASCAR race together and kind of became friends like that.
Sure.
Well, that year it rained. I was like, I got to get out of here, and pretty much was like, and I don't know how it came up, but Mark was I was probably Susie more than Mark, but Susie's like, come down, because Eichner did the same thing. Eichner came down from Pacific Northwest to work for Mark. Okay. Kind of made that transition. So I did the same thing, and they had a above. So their shop at the time was like probably a 3,000 square foot shop behind their house in Valley Center, California.
Okay.
And in the attic, they had this single storage room, but it had a shower and it had a sink in it. And they're like, you can just live up there for free and work for us. I was like, all right, sweet. So I just packed up my car and a little flatbed trailer. I think I had a quad, a dirt bike, and a jet ski on it, my toolbox. And I moved to California like that. And I lived in the attic, above the shop for 2 years and worked for them. And I went there to kind of learn how to weld and stuff. And that never happened. I ended up just being like the shipping assistant, I guess, for Susie. And I would, check over all the frames and everything when they got done getting welded, make sure there's no pinholes and all the tabs are on it and there's the right thing for the order before it went to powder coat. And it'd come back. I'd prep it all for, tap all the holes, get box up the frames, box up the arms, put all the bushings in the arms, hone the swing arms, everything. Just basically when everything came back from powder coat, I prepped everything, boxed everything, and then Susie would ship it. Okay. So I ended up working there, I think about 3 years. They ended up moving to Temecula. And then I moved out, got an apartment because they sold their house and all that stuff. And so, yeah, I worked for them for a few years. It was definitely a learning curve. Mark's an awesome guy. I love Mark. I love Susie. Mm-hmm. But Mark definitely does things his way, but working with, you probably know, you worked with your dad, I'm just assuming, for a little bit. Yeah. I worked with my dad growing up, and we butted heads. So working for Mark wasn't too bad. A lot of people complain, but it wasn't as bad as working for your family.
Right. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying. But yeah, like that had to be a pretty cool thing for you because you're living in the shop, you're around like legendary legger things, right? Like when I think of legendary quads, legger's at the top of the list for all kinds of quads throughout the years. So to be around that, and then I'm probably like subconsciously the stuff that you learned in those 3 years to just take to the knowledge you're using throughout your career and to this day, like that had to be huge for you.
Yeah, no, it was definitely an awesome learning experience. Moving to a different state and kind of not knowing really anybody at all. And, and then working there and, seeing stuff get built and how things get built and kind of understanding that, stuff is definitely helped kind of round my racing education, I would say, out quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And then like you said, there was a lot of cool stuff. Mark, built like an XR 650 for some, for Baja guys. I think like maybe like Shane Hitt and Tim Farr rode it, back in the day, Baja, and just there was a lot of one-off bikes that got built here and there that were cool to see and magazine guys did because like you said, kind of at that time that was before Walsh. That was before a lot, there was some people out there too, but not kind of the companies that are the big companies now. There was no JB then and stuff like that. So Legger was kind of the pinnacle of the aftermarket chassis stuff, other than maybe Doug Roll, but Doug Roll, I think, kind of didn't have the production that Mark had. And not that Mark had a big production, but, Doug was making, I think, half a dozen chassis a year, and Mark was turning, 2 or 3 chassis a week. Plus all the front ends and spindles and all that stuff. So it was such a big advancement from the stock bikes. It was cool being there for sure. And there's a lot of people that worked there that, went on to, like Eichner worked there, Scott Butler, he was, Angela Moore's ex-husband, that's how they all met and everything. There's a lot of people good fabricators that worked there and did a really awesome job.
Yeah,
that was part of the industry.
Yeah, that was just such a legendary time. I mean, there was 10, 15 years, 20 years there where just Liger was just pumping out cool stuff. It seemed like every day. So that was pretty rad. We'll get right back to the show, but now a word from our sponsors. And thank you for listening to these ads. Without these great companies, none of this would be possible. Show your support for the people who support us. Welcome to the team, two-time champ Joel Hetrick, who dropped the biggest news of the offseason when he announced his move to CST Tires. The CST takeover has been gaining momentum over the past several seasons, and now Joel Hetrick and his Phoenix Racing teammate Jeffrey Rastrelli are the most recent additions. The Pulse MXR tire has helped lead riders like Thomas Brown to race wins and 3 consecutive Quad Cross of Nations titles, Nick Janusa to the Pro Class podium, myself Cody Jansen as I rode my Pulse MXR fronts and white label soft compound rears to back-to-back national championships in the Junior 25 Plus class, and the most recent additions have us thinking a Pro Class national championship is on the horizon for CST tires. The Pulse MXR tire, available in soft and standard compounds, offers the highest level of traction, most predictable cornering, and superior wear characteristics when compared to the competition. Visit shop.csttires.com to join the CST takeover today, or prepare to be beat by someone who did. Joel Hetrick, Jeffrey Rastrelli, Nick Janusa, myself, and so many others are believers in CST tires. Are you? CST Tires, where passion meets the ground. You already know we're Team Blue Crew here at the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. Whether it's second all-time winningest, 7-time and reigning ATVMX Pro Class National Champion Chad Wienen, or 6-time and current XC1 Pro ATV GNCC National Champion Walker Fowler, it's clear the podium-proven Yamaha YFC 450R is the winning choice of sport ATVs. This unprecedented success for the YFC 450R, its unrivaled quality and performance, and the undeniable fact that Yamaha is the leading OEM supporter of ATV racing has created a Yamaha takeover within the sport quad market. Better yet, Yamaha's Blue Crew Racer Support Program is back and even stronger for 2021, meaning Yamaha riders are about to cash in on higher payouts and more prize opportunities, including a chance to win a brand new YFZ 450R. For more info, head over to YamahaBlueCrew.com, follow them on social media at Yamaha Outdoors, and check out Yamaha's full proven off-road lineup at YamahaOutdoors.com today. For over 150 years, Valvoline has led the charge by being dedicated to constant improvement and innovation across all disciplines of racing. Valvoline has sponsored some of the greatest names in motorsports, and for the better part of a decade, I've been fortunate enough to be part of the historically great Team Valvoline. From my commuting vehicles to small engines, race quads, and everything in between, I trust nothing but Valvoline in all of my equipment. I've experienced increased function and durability as well as a longer life expectancy thanks to Valvoline's array of products and lubricants. Since 1866, Valvoline has been focused on bettering your experience, whether on road, on track, and everywhere in between. Upgrade to Valvoline today and check them out at valvoline.com. Ssi Decals is a name synonymous with ATV racing, synonymous with big-time success, and absolutely synonymous with the best-looking decals around. An offshoot of their parent company that was established in 1947, SSI first took shape from owner Ian Harris's passion for ATVs. With what started as just making numbers and decals for riders like Chad Wienen, the company quickly took off, and today you couldn't imagine ATV motocross without SSI Decals. The graphics maker and designer now supports all the top teams in ATV motocross, as well as teams and riders racing GNCC, Work Series, Pro Motocross and Supercross, Canadian Pro Motocross, short course off-road trucks, UTVs, snowcross, and oh yeah, 6-time NHRA World Champion Clay Milliken. No project is too big or too small for SSI Decals, making your identity stick with championship level graphics. Head over to SSIDecals.com today and then maybe call the doctor because things are about to get sick. The Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast is brought to you in part by DID and their range of championship winning chains. Powered by technology, DID chains are designed to give you the greatest strength to weight ratio, making them the optimal chain for racing and giving you a championship level edge. DID has been driving championship-winning race programs since 1933, chosen by champions such as Chad Wienen, Joel Hetrick, and myself, Cody Jansen. Champion above the rest is DID's 520 ATV2 chain, with those same design principles and materials being used throughout their entire line of products, including their on-road category as well. Pick up a DID chain today at your local dealer or reputable online e-tailer. DID, what drives you?
We are proud to be partnered with Numira Technologies. Since 2001, Numira has led the charge in the ATV and side-by-side market, covering more applications than anyone else in the industry. Numira's advanced piston technology uses a NASA-exclusive aluminum alloy that helps to reduce expansion rates, that allows for tighter tolerances, and leads to higher overall engine performance for your machine. For more information about Numira's wide offerings of pistons, rings, gaskets, and industry-leading top-end repair kits, visit your local dealer or online at www.numira.com. Numira Technologies, pistons with an attitude. We are pleased to be partnered with Bronco ATV and UTV components. Bronco has been an industry leader in replacement hard parts and accessories for all makes and models for over 15 years. With a catalog that includes a full line of electrical components, engine internals like rods and cylinders, all the way down to suspension parts and bearing kits. Bronco is your hard part source for whatever you need for whatever you ride. Available exclusively through distributors around the world. Visit your local dealer or online at broncoatv.com. Forworks Carbon's innovative lightweight products include top-notch seat covers, carbon fiber and plastic hoods, gas tank covers, exhaust shields, shock guards, and much more. Whether you have an ATV, UTV, or snowmobile, Forworks has the goodies that will improve your ride and make you salivate. We trust Forworks for increased function and a sexier look, and you should too. Forworks Carbon, always working hard to bring high quality and innovative parts to the market. Check them out today at fwcarbon.com.
But you just connected like all the dots for me, because I was going to ask you, I knew that was the heyday of the Mickey Thompson Stadium Cross Series racing. I know I posted one of those pictures like last week or whatever. And I was going to ask you to connect the dots for me from, being kind of like this, rising amateur to throwing your hat in the ring against pros, right? At the Mickey Thompson races. And I'm pretty sure you almost did that right away, right? Like you didn't spend very much time racing amateur races at the Mickey Thompson stuff.
Yeah, when I was in Washington or Pacific Northwest up there, Eichner was the guy to beat. He would just school everybody for a long time. And I'm kind of like, I think happens a lot. People move up really, really quick, and you get in the pro class, you're like, oh, wow. And local pro is so different than anywhere else, unless you're somewhere where, you might get 2 or 3 national guys, but like Northwest and even in California, kind of that time, Northwest, it was like Eichner, and there was, Keith Marks and a couple, and Elkins brothers and a couple people that were pretty fast up there. But it was, when you went to the Mickeys, it was a whole nother level.
Sure.
And when I moved, it wasn't because like, oh, I need to get better. I was just trying to get out of the rain more than anything and find something to do,
Sure.
But when I moved, I moved in 97 the beginning of 97 is when I moved. So the Mickeys were done by then. I was already racing nationals, but, okay. But the Mickeys thing, yeah, like you said, when I barely turned pro, and the Mickeys at the time, cause that was, they'd go to Seattle and I'd watch, I think I went one year and watched all of them. And I was like, this is like the next level. I got to go do it. There was no nationals. There was no, I'm going to go ride A class or any of that. It was just like, okay, I'm a local pro, or I want to be a local pro. And the next big thing is go to Mickey's, because the nationals are East Coast. And that's like, at the time that was too far away.
Oh, that's a world away back then.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, like the Mickeys were promoted so much better. The magazine coverage is better. Every once in a while you'd see a Loretta Lynn's or Muddy Creek or something in the magazine, but every Mickey's was in the magazine at the time. That's all you had was magazines, there was no social media. So you got all your information from the magazines, and it was all about Mickey's pretty much.
Yeah.
So when the Mickeys came, I was like, I got to go ride that. So the first year I went and rode it, I was 15 years old. I had to go get you had to have either be 16 or have your learner's permit to drive to be able to race the Mickeys. So I went and got my learner's permit just so I could go race Mickey.
Go racing. Yeah.
So I go race it. And I was 15 years old, and I barely qualified for the first one.
Okay.
It was a mess. I ran my leg over like right off the start in the main. I got like second to last or something, but I didn't care. I was like, I made the show, which at the time, if you made the show, that was a huge deal. If you made the night program, it was like you were almost somebody instantly.
Sure.
At that time, because there were so many fast guys run that thing.
Yep.
So I raced one more that year. Then the next year we're going to ride the whole series. We went to the first race. It was a mud race. I don't think they even had qualifying. I qualified. I did okay. And the next race was Seattle, and I started, I think, 7th or 8th, and I got up to like 3rd or something, I think. And then they inverted for the main event. I was on the front row and kind of got screwed up and ended up that split lane, ended up taking the right side on the right lane on the split lane, because they changed the track for the main event a little bit because of once it was so lopsided. And
sure,
got out front, led the whole thing after like 2 laps, and won my first Mickey's, my 3rd race. So kind of went from just being a kid qualified, and that's pretty good. Yeah, he's somebody to all of a sudden win in a race, 3rd race in. Right, it was the week after I turned 16. So
right, so you're 16. You win your first like pro race of the Mickey Thompson series. There, you're racing professionals. Like, what was that like at that time? Because like that had to be almost like startling for you, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was. It was a mud race too. But yeah, I hated mud races. But it was muddy, but it kind of wasn't muddy. It wasn't like a mud bog, but it was pretty one line. So if you got up front and held your line, you're pretty good.
Yeah, like tacked up at like night or whatever. Like we've all seen those racetracks. Yeah.
But it was crazy because, like, I mean, first off, I'm riding a Suzuki, and there's like 2 people out there other than me riding a Suzuki. So you already stand out a little bit, but then you go out and win on a Suzuki, and everybody's like, what the heck, So, I mean, people took notice pretty quick just because it was, I think also I was so young and new, but plus I'm on a Suzuki too. So I was kind of an oddball.
Yeah. So I'm glad you're touching on that though, because so this is 93, you're on the LT 250, and so many people, when I posted that picture, wanted to hear about that quad. They're like, oh, have them talk about the JP 250. It's crazy to even like, cause that's before my time. I was born in 92. Yeah. So when I saw you, I'm like, was he really around to ride an LT 250? Like, I didn't even know that until last week.
Yeah. So that JP bike, like I said, I had a stock bike. It pretty much, I think I went to like Dune Fest or something in Coos Bay, and me and my buddy were jumping our quads, and I'm on a stock LT 250, and pretty much the whole frame just collapsed on the thing. We're like, we need to buy something. So we bought a JP because they were local, and they built a frame for it. So we get we get all the parts for it. And I'm probably 14, 15, just about 15 at the time, I think.
Yep.
And I'm not much of a mechanic at that time. And so like we get all the stuff, and my dad's was never an ATV race guy or anything, or even mechanics. He kind of work on stuff here and there just to figure it out a little bit. But pretty much we got this JP bike, and like,
So 14-year-old Kory's got to figure it out. That's how the story's going to go. I can feel it.
I got to build a bike, and I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So I'm like, all right,
I'll figure it out.
I remember having sawhorses, like it was yesterday. I had 2 sawhorses, a piece of plywood, and that was my bike stand. And I put this frame on this thing and started just assembling it, but that thing, it was an aftermarket chassis, but I almost like, I felt like they had no clue when they were building it. Like, stuff didn't fit. Like, they should send me a hammer and a saw and a welder with that thing. Like, stuff. But it could have been me putting it together too, because I didn't know what I was doing. But
right,
it didn't go together easy. Like, putting the arms on was a pain in the butt. Putting the swing arm in it was a pain.
Oh, nothing's worse. Nothing's worse than that too, when you're trying to piece together a bike and shit ain't fitting.
Yeah, and I know what I'm doing. I'm trying to put this thing together,
Yeah.
And so fast forward to that, I win that race on that thing, and then we go to the next race and had PEP shocks on it, and Wayne Meridian did them.
Yep.
Wayne comes by and he's like, oh yeah, good job the last race, and he's does his normal Wayne thing, comes over and pushes on the bike, and he's like, what the hell is wrong with this thing? And I'm like, I don't know. I just won on it. Yeah, I just went on it. What's wrong with it? He's like, this thing's not right. He starts looking at it, finally realizes that I have the pivot bolt so tight that the suspension's not even working in the back. It's just like so stiff. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, but that
So
bike
innocent, so innocent, Kory.
yeah. I mean, just shoot, like that bike, we didn't realize how bad it was until we got that legger bike. And we got that legger bike, it was like, oh my gosh, this like a whole nother step, like stuff goes together, stuff actually works. Like it was like, I can't believe I even rode that thing. But so when we got the legger bike, that JP bike actually turned into my TT national bike.
Okay.
When I started nationals, or when I started doing nationals, that was actually, we turned into a TT bike.
Okay.
For a couple races.
Sure.
So
that makes
sense. It was turned into a TT bike because we need another bike, and we built the legger bike. So the JP bike was kind of a backup practice bike, turned into a TT bike, and then I sold it to somebody locally in Washington, and I don't know where it went from there. I heard maybe Canada or something where it went, but I don't know. But by then we put a legger front end on it and kind of fix some of the issues that were going on with it.
Right. It wasn't the problem child that it was at the beginning.
Yeah. It definitely, we got it better, but it still wasn't ideal, but it was better than a stalker for sure.
Right.
For sure.
So you're a young buck at that time. You're 16 years old. You win this race. Did that spark anything for you, like as far as opportunities go or sponsorships or anything like that? Because I guess that's where my mind went when I started reading up on this, 16-year-old winning this race kind of out of the blue.
I mean, as far as people kind of knew who I was. And like I said, we got to know Mark and Susie real well that year. And so we ended up ordering that chassis that year. And then the next year was 94. And then, as kind of progressed, and you're like, okay, well, now we're racing Mickeys, we're getting top 10s, top 5s, we're doing good here. Like, and everybody's talking about nationals, going to nationals. Like, well, we should go try this out, like, let's go to national and see what happens. So,
okay.
back then it was TT and motocross. Mm-hmm. And I grew up racing a little bit of TT here and there. But because of my age, I really couldn't too much because I was about 12, 13. We just went on 250 because I was so big. So we kind of quit racing the TT stuff that was local. But when we started, like, well, let's go do nationals. Well, they were TT and motocross. Like, well, what's the best way to do this? Well, 94, we bought that bike from Mark. We kind of changed with him. And so, like, let's go race. We got this plan that, like, well, let's go race Texas. Because Texas was a doubleheader, and Tyler, Texas that year, they had a TT. I think it was like Thursday, Friday, and a motocross Saturday, Sunday. And it was all the same venue.
Okay.
So, like, let's go do that. We can do 2 nationals if we go to one event. And by then, my parents are pretty good friends with Mark and everything. So Mark was like, hey, just bring your stuff down. We'll load it in the trailer. And Ron Baker, that works at PEP, was still kind of racing then. He had I think an LT 500 that Mark maybe built. So anyways, I rode with Mark and his truck and trailer to Texas that year.
Okay.
And raced the TT and the motocross. I think I did pretty good in the TT and the motocross. It was so hot, and I was not used to the heat at all, and I just died. And it was an eye-opening experience for sure. Like, yeah, race local motocross, and then you go race Mickey's, which there's a lot of fast guys there, but it's not
different style of racing. Yeah,
totally different style of racing, and a different pace and different everything,
Yeah. Yep.
And it was an eye opener, the heat and everything. And I thought I was going to die. It was so hot. And I think I got like 16th or 17th, I think I don't care if we had a qualifier or not, but it was pretty much a full field.
Yep.
And then, so we raced those 2 races in 94. And then, and everybody always talked about Loretta's, how it was or is. Mm-hmm. So, like, well, let's go to Loretta's because that's another doubleheader. So out of the 10 races that year, I went to 2 events and I hit almost half of them. I hit 2 TTs, 2 motocrosses out of the 5 and 5 of each.
Sure.
So we went to Loretta's and raced Loretta's that year in 04. And we got there, and we got to meet Gary a little bit here and there, and and Wayne Henson a little bit, and we were at Loretta's, and Wayne came up to us and said, "Hey, I really want to help you guys out. I want to help you guys out, but part of me helping you guys out is you need to ride a Honda. You can't ride the Suzuki anymore. Like, you got to get off this. Like, I'll help you out. I'll help like." Kind of set your bike up. I'll build you. I think he kind of built the first bike for us, maybe, I think too. And at the time, Gary had a one-off TT bike that Lager built, that was a little lighter weight frame and some things. And they were going to build a new bike for Gary for 95. So it was like, well, buy Gary's TT bike. It's all done, set up. You can just ride it how it is. Just, change a little setup here and there. It's a great bike. Okay. All you got to do is build a motocross bike, and I'll build it for you, help you guys out. So like, all right. So, I mean, it was one of those things like, probably like you got all these Honda parts, and now you get a Yamaha, and you're like, what am I going to do with all this stuff?
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
All this stuff. So, we had to sell what we had to buy another stuff. It wasn't like, oh yeah, let's buy it and we'll figure out what we're doing with that. So
hey, I know all about that right now.
Yeah, so we had a fire sale on Suzuki's at that time.
Sure.
Sold all Suzuki stuff and built. We built a Lager motocross bike. We bought the TT bike from Gary for 05, and then I got a stalker.
95.
I think
95.
For 95, yeah, for 95,
Yep.
And I got a stalker to practice on that. I think I threw a ball joint front end on it or something, just so it was a little bit wider, and did a rear shock for it and an axle, just kind of. Half-assed did it to make something that was cheap to ride that I could go out and practice on that was close.
Sure. So then that's when that whole deal started. That was one of the things I was going to ask, was how you transitioned from the Suzuki to the Honda, because I knew that was coming in this time period. I was wondering how that all happened. So that's really interesting. Were you one of the last holdouts on the Suzuki, or how did that go down?
Yeah, pretty much. I think I was about the only guy out there on Suzuki.
Okay.
I think at that time, there was a couple guys, one or two guys, I think Helsley and maybe somebody else at Mickey's that were on Suzuki's. But as far as nationals, like they were odd ducks. You almost never saw them at that point. Right. So that was like Henson was just like, you got to get off this thing. Like, if you break something and you don't have it, there's almost nobody here that you can go ask for a part if it's something even minor. If you need a coil or, just random little part, you might be out of luck because there's nobody here that has one to spare.
Right.
So like, okay, yeah. So
that had to be a pretty cool and big, monumental, really, feather in your cap, when Wayne Henson is, saying that he wants to help you out, because there wasn't much more legendary of a guy or a program, talking about Gary's deal at that time. Like that had to be a huge deal for you.
Yeah, and that not trying to knock Wayne or anything, but that was kind of in the beginning of, Wayne goes way back farther than that with Gary for sure.
Right.
But that was really when he was starting to, I would say, grow in his racing side really big, and the clutch stuff was really starting to take off.
Okay.
And they were starting to get into other stuff. So, Wayne, it was a big deal, Wayne, because Wayne was Gary's guy. So it was huge.
Yeah. Yep.
But Wayne wasn't the Wayne stigma that,
right.
The godfather of ATV racing or whatever you want to call him that he is now, but he definitely was there, but he wasn't at the peak he is now for sure. But
right.
Yeah, it was a huge deal when he came over and said that. I was like, yeah, if he's saying that and he wants to help us, it's a big opportunity. Let's go ahead and do it, and Wayne was that next year or two. Wayne was a big part of, everything he told us. We listened to. Brian, his son, actually came and wrenched for me for part of a year.
Okay.
Too as well, and then also about that time too. When buying that bike from Gary, we got to know Gary pretty well, and we hauled his Goodman's were hauling his stuff around at the races, but we hauled his stuff kind of out there for him to get started, and hauled the stuff back at the end of the season to California for him. But also, I ended up going and staying with Gary for 2 or 3 times for like a week at a shot, and doing some riding lessons with him and some training with him.
Okay.
Which helped me a lot. He taught me a lot the time I spent with him, down there. And when that was kind of when he started Denton racing, I think I was kind of his first unofficial employee.
Okay.
I got down there and I don't know if you remember back in the day, steering dampeners were his big thing.
Yes, I do.
But they were screen door shocks or something, I guess. He was adapting them for a steering dampener. But I remember going to Home Depot with him and buying, a box of 100 of them that he ordered, going back, unboxing them, putting all the clamps on them for him, helping him bag them, right when he was starting out of his garage at his house, So it was a cool time to be, to be kind of coming up and being a part of all these other, all these people and kind of, fitting in all these little spots with everybody. It was pretty
neat. And I think that's a huge part of your story is that you're connected to just about everybody in some way, shape, or form. And I was going to ask you brought up Gary and those connections and everything. And I was going to ask you if you had somebody early on that you had looked up to or learned from or however you want to put it back then. But it sounds like Gary might've been that guy.
Yeah. I think when I was growing up in Washington, Doug Eichner was probably the guy I looked up to for a long time. Because when I first started racing, when I was racing that 80, he was a pro and would go to arena cross, and he was the guy. Him and Greg Longi were the guys to beat. They raced the Mickeys, and I'm on an 80, and I'm looking at these guys like, oh man, they're so fast. Like, you would stop what you're doing no matter where you're at to go watch the pros, and watch them. Yeah. So, and then he moved to California and went to work at Laggers. It was like, oh yeah, watching, how's the Pacific Northwest guy doing, the Nationals and Mickeys, and he's winning Mickeys and winning a championship and stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of really looked up to Doug, and especially when I turned pro and he was still there. I was like, I want to beat him, but he's beating me by half a lap, but, and then from there, when I started going nationals and stuff, really, Gary was that guy that I looked up to and, learned a lot from Gary riding, doing lessons with him and him explaining things on the track to me and how things to look for. And, when I was riding, just things to think about and how to approach the track, taught me a lot that has really stuck with me through the years.
Oh, sure.
So I'd say those two guys probably are the two guys that I really looked up to growing up and, and coming up that, really made a big difference on my career and things I did.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that talking about Eichner because for me, that was Doug Gust, like for me, being a Wisconsin kid, Doug Gust being from Wisconsin. So, he was obviously in his heyday when I was coming up, and like when he would show up at a local race, as a little boy, like I didn't know the difference between the status of Doug Gust and Ricky Carmichael or Doug Gust and Brett Favre. Like he was God here. Right. Yeah. So, I just remember him showing up and that's how it was for me. I wanted to watch everything he did. It was like, he walked on water. Then when I got invited to go ride with him a little bit, and as I got older and like, I as an adolescent or whatever, riding with him and, being able to hold my own a little bit and doing hole shots with him and whatever. And just like words of affirmation that he would give me, I had to pinch myself, honest to God, because it was like, this is my biggest hero, like saying these things to me, so I can totally relate to what you're saying. And that kind of bringing up some of those names too, kind of like touches on, I guess, how integral you are to the overall history of ATV racing. Because if my calculations are correct, as far as like AMA nationals go, you raced every series champion ever, with the exception of Joel Hetrick, I believe. But you raced Rodney Gentry, you raced Denton, you would have raced Farr, Hitt, Gust, Jeremiah, Spader, Natali, Bird, Wimmer, Creamer, Wienen. You raced every single one of them, Kory, with the exception of Hetrick. That's amazing to think about. Literally the whole history of the ATV Nationals, you've raced every one of them guys.
Yeah. I mean, that's, that going back to, the national stuff. I mean, Gary was an awesome champion. He won championships. I don't think he was the fastest guy necessarily all the time. He was fast for sure, but he was the smartest guy out there. He just had, with his history with motorcycles and how long he'd been racing, he was just, and that's, working with him for a few times in those lessons and things. He was so smart about how he approached the track, things he saw on the track, how he thought about everything he was doing is very, very calculated. And that's that's what made him, I think, you know, I mean, it's part of a package, but that was the thing that made him so tough out there. Was he may not win every time, but he was smart. He was always very calculated and knew what he was doing and had a purpose for what he was doing out there. He just wasn't out there blasting berms and holding it to the floor, just go for it, you know, just wide open.
Right. Well, some of that, and you touched on the two-wheel side, but some of that is he was a savvy professional, basically coming from dirt bikes already, as like the ATV guys were figuring out how to do this whole pro quad thing. It was the infancy of the sport. Well, Gary was already a pro, right? And he just brought it to the ATV side. So to have a guy like that in your corner, I mean, that had to be invaluable. Yeah, no, it was for sure, you know, and that's, you know, then once Gary, you know, kind of, or once he retired and everybody else started coming up, it was a fight. I mean, you look back on it and the guy that got 10th one weekend could be the winner the next weekend. I mean, it was crazy because, well, especially with TT and motocross, there was more variation than there is now, obviously. Yeah. But I mean, it was so close. Even if you got 5th every race, you could have still won. I mean, it was just, and the championships really came down to who had the least amount of problems. I mean, which it still does. I mean, you look at Joel and Chad, and if they don't have an issue here, issue there, one of them's going to win. But back then you had 10, 15 guys almost that for a championship, it was like, if I wouldn't have broke down this race and that race, I would have been, instead of getting 10th in points, I would have got 3rd in points. You know, I mean, it was crazy how close it together it was. And you had people like Shane most time was really good at TT, but he was still good at motocross, but he could win a motocross here and there, but he'd win almost all the TTs at, you know, one point, or, you know, Tim, he would be real strong, or, you know, you'd have these years all of a sudden, like Travis just, you know, goes out and does a bunch of testing, and him and Paul click, and they go out and, you know, don't have any issues and come out and win that year, you know, and then all of a sudden next year they change the program, and then so-and-so wins the next year. It's just, it was crazy because you never knew who was going to win, and there was always the threat that anybody could win. It wasn't just 2 guys or 3 guys or 4 guys. It was like 10 guys that you felt like could win any race, and it just kind of depended on how to win. Well, I think that's a lot of what made that basically 10-year stretch or whatever after Gary retired, that made that's like such a legendary period for the sport, is because there was so much variation, because there was so much, you know, different riders winning. And I know that there was, you know, that ended up being the end of the GNC series at one point, and then the split, and then there was pro production. We'll get into all that, but there was so much going on in the sport right then and there. But the fact that, like, so many different guys could win, like you just touched on, that I think that's why that era is held in such high regard. And like that kind of leads me to where I'm going with this, because fast forward a few years now, and this is when we see like this major shift in the sport where the word pioneer comes in, like I said earlier, because we see the dawn of the 4-strokes, and you roll out this legendary YZ powered 4-stroke quad. Tell me, I guess, how that came to be, because again, like you pioneered that whole fad, really. As the #1 podcast in ATV racing, it's only right that we partner with the industry leaders in suspension tuning. Insert Impact Solutions. Impact Solutions is a full-service ATV and side-by-side suspension center specializing in the revalving and service of your motocross and off-road suspension. With over 25 years of elite-level knowledge, experience, and testing with riders of all ages and ability levels, Casey Greek, Jay Goebel, and the Impact crew strive to exceed clients' expectations for service and setup. Impact Solutions is the official Elka Suspension Service Center of the United States, offering unmatched product knowledge and experience. Whether you're in need of service, parts, warranty, sales, or technical support, Impact Solutions has you covered. Head over to impactsolutionsatv.com or give them a call today.
We interrupt this program for a special news bulletin.
The following message is brought to you by Manscaped.com. The Manscaped engineering team has outdone themselves this time, creating the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, now available for purchase in the US and Canada. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, an official sponsor of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, with this exclusive offer of 20% off and free worldwide shipping with code DIGGINGDEEP20 at Manscaped.com. I'm one of the first people to try the new 4.0, and I am blown away. This thing is next level. What sets this trimmer apart from all the rest? The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn the LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. It features a new multi-functioning on-off switch with travel lock for those of us who like to travel. And my favorite, the new trimmer allows you to customize your trim with 4 different guard lengths, an upgrade from its predecessor that only featured 2. If you're listening, you know that good tools are a must, so wait no more to get the best tools for the job. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com by using code DiggingDeep20. The Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast is also sponsored by DP Brakes, a longtime supporter of ATV racing and the world leader in sintered brake technology. DP has been dominating the ATV world for decades, supporting the best four-wheeled racers on the planet. 2021's impressive lineup includes Joel Hetrick and Jeffrey Rastrelli of the Phoenix Racing Team, myself, Kory Jansen, and my back-to-back national championships, Baldwin Motorsports, Ford Brothers Racing, Nick Janusa, Wesley Wolf, and many more, including all of the top 14 GNCC Series pros, led by the champ Walker Fowler, Bryson Neal, Cole Richardson, Jared McClure, and Chris Borich. These top riders continue to appreciate the high performance and impressive durability that their DP brakes have to offer, products that ultimately help place them on the top of the podium. Available at www.dp-brakes.com, purchase at your local dealer, or message the show for their contact info today. What are you waiting for? Join the best ATV riders in the world on DP Brakes. 15 years into the brand's existence, Factory 43 is back with us and continuing to make huge waves in the ATV world. For the second consecutive season, Factory 43 is the official aluminum parts choice of the Phoenix Racing ATV team, providing their state-of-the-art Evo Nerf bars, MX-style front bumpers, and grab bars for some of the fastest riders on the planet. If you're in the market to upgrade your Nerf bars, bumpers, or grab bars, head over to factory43atv.com to see their full line of products available for all makes and models. Want to be just like Joel Hetrick and Jeffrey Rastrelli riding with Factory 43's industry-leading products? Head over to factory43atv.com today.
So it kind of starts, when I was growing up, I rode dirt bikes too, because there was never, like, I go to a local race like Washougal or somewhere, and there'd be 6 quads, or, you know, there'd be, we were hanging on by a thread, basically, you know, like still being there.
Yep.
But you sat around so much, I'm like, I want to ride another class. So I got dirt bikes, and I rode dirt bikes too. And I've been to Loretta's on a dirt bike and stuff, qualified and done that, and
Sure.
Ponca City and everything. And so I always have had I don't have one now, but I've always kind of had a dirt bike.
Okay.
In between right now a little bit, but I've always had a dirt bike. So I bought when I moved to right before I moved to California, I had a 96 CR250. Thing was awesome. And then 97, they came out with that aluminum frame CR250, and I bought that thing right before I moved to California, and I bought it. That's
the bike everybody hated.
Oh my God. It was the worst dirt bike I've ever had. And I had that thing, and I'm just like, this thing is the biggest heap.
It looked cool, but it was, it was a piece.
Oh, it was horrible. It was like, I sold my 96, 97. I'm like, what? I'm like, trade the guy back or something? Like, this is horrible.
Here, take my brand new bike.
Yeah. So I hated that thing. So then in 98, Yamaha, you know, then Henry's riding this 4-stroke, and,
yeah,
you know, watching him like at Vegas, track's all hard packed and slick, and he goes out there and smokes everybody.
Yes. I remember watching that bar to bar 2 would have been that year, and I remember watching that VHS tape on replay of that, because that was such a cool era to see, you know, everybody thinking he's not going to do anything on this 4-stroke, and like you said, on a dry slick track like that, he could just cruise around and motor it away from everybody.
Yeah. So then 98, you know, came out, and they came out of that bike, and I had that 97 CR250, and I just hated that thing. And I'm like, that thing's pretty cool, that 4-stroke. You know, and everybody's talking about it. So I'm like, I got to get rid of this dirt bike. So,
it can't be worse than my 97 CR.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just like, I got to get rid of this thing. So I go trade it in and get one. And the funniest thing is, I go buy this bike, they decompression, trying to start a 4-stroke. I've never had one before at the time. I'm like, I don't know how the thing works, but
yeah,
I buy the thing, and the guy's like, hey, do we need to, because people are breaking Kickstarters off on these things because they they don't know how to start them.
Right.
The guy's all, hey, do you want me to show you how to start this thing? I'm like, no, I got it. I'm good. Trying to be a cool guy. I buy this bike, don't know how to start the thing. I get it. I'm living at Leggers at the time.
Okay.
I get it back, and Chris Fristo happened to be there. And him and I probably spent a good 45 minutes trying to start this bike.
Oh,
I get it back to the house. Like, we're kicking it and trying to get it figured out. Anyways, I started riding this dirt bike, and I'm like, this thing is awesome. Like, it goes from having to be like super smooth on the gas and worrying about the thing breaking loose and all the stuff when you go ride it. Cause I mean, I wasn't like crazy fast on dirt bike, but I kind of ride one, but
yeah,
I was more like, if it was a sandy track, I'm good. Hard pack, I'd fall on my ass. Cause I could never find traction on a hard pack. So this 4-stroke is like awesome. Like, I'm riding this thing, like, it's super cool. And at the time we were doing the Pace off-road races at the time.
Okay.
And they started that Thunder bike class. So they're running 4-stroke Thunder bikes, and you kind of see that first year, all of a sudden everybody starts, jumping on this 4-stroke bandwagon, and you ride them and they're fun to ride, ton of power. You can be real lazy on them. It just makes it kind of a little easier deal, but they have
more forgiving. Yeah. More forgiving.
Way more forgiving, but they have a ton of power and they run really good, good at the time, I should say, because they were a bitch to start. And
oh my gosh, nothing was worse. And I was a young kid, but there was a number of years there where, like, I remember getting my first 250F, I guess, in like 04 or whatever. And even still at that point, kicking any of those machines was scary. Like, you didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah. And so I'm riding this dirt bike, and they got this new Thunder bike class, and kind of see, not everybody switching, but the 4-strokes are definitely more popular now, and people are kind of going to them. I'm riding this thing, and it's like, this thing runs awesome, and they're keeping up. They're not any slower than 250. And when I would go to Glen Helen, because I'd go to Glen Helen all the time for practice.
Okay.
Because they're open on Thursdays. When I was living at Leggers, I'd drive up to Glen Helen and go practice there, because I could go after work and they were still open.
Sure.
And there'd be a bunch of dirt bike pros out there. And my 250R is about the same speed as a 250, 252 stroke. We're pretty close, and when I put a 330 in, or we could be running 330, I could pull away from most of the pro guys, like Sean Hamlin. He was a factory Suzuki guy.
Yeah. Yep.
For a little bit.
Good rider.
I knew him fairly well. And like, we go out and just battle. Like, we knew each other good enough that, like, at Glen Helen, like, he would let me, like, be inches off his wheel and he wouldn't care. Like, he wasn't like the guy flipping me off and pulling over and roosting. Like, it was like a battle,
Okay. Yeah.
So seeing the dirt bikes, the 4-strokes not any slower than the 250, and I'm out there racing with, battling these guys. I'm like, okay, so that thing has to be pretty close.
So obviously, not to interrupt, but obviously the gears are going in your head. We gotta put this thing in an ATV chassis.
Yeah. And at the time, Lager had been building some 4-stroke stuff. He started doing a 300EX frame. And so, I mean, there was definitely like 4-stroke stuff going on at the Nationals.
Yep.
So he's building aftermarket frames for 4-stroke stuff. And I talked to Mark. I'm like, Mark, let's, this thing's pretty awesome. And I started looking at the rules for everything, and I'm like, we can run this at the Nationals. We can run it. Not only can we run it in the pro class, at the time there was like 3 pro-am classes. There's 4-stroke pro-am, and I think like super sport, or I can't remember. There was 3 different pro-am classes in the pro class. And I'm like, we can ride this bike in 4 classes. I mean, it's
sure. Yeah.
It's legal for it. And I'm pretty sure it's as good as a 250, 2-stroke. I don't think it's any worse. So I talked to Mark about it, and Mark kind of saw it too. I'm like, hey, stuff's getting more, this 4-stroke thing's really, really looking strong. Let's throw it in there. So we spent, or, I should say Mark spent, I was there watching and build it.
Sure.
But he, spent some time, and we built that thing. And I remember so quad cross just started in California. Lori did 4 rounds at Glen Helen on the REM backtrack, was going to be that winter. And then the pace stuff started right after that. So I was like, Mark, let's get this thing done. We'll go out and ride it at quad cross, see how it is, like, cause I knew a couple like Mark Earhart, and there'd be a couple other people that would be out of that quad cross kind of getting tuned up for the stadium races. I'm like, let's see how if it doesn't work, I'll ride my 250 thing, but let's just build this thing, It
would be a perfect test run of this thing to see if it was going to be competitive and realistic. Yeah.
So we didn't get it done till the last race of quad cross and this is when quad cross, like I said, first started. So we went from racing in California basically with dirt bikes to our own small series that was 4 rounds the first thing, and show up the last round with this bike, and like we didn't powder coat the frame. It just, like, I threw some random plastic on it. It kind of looked hodgepodge together, but it really wasn't. But sure. we didn't know if we needed to weld something else on the frame or anything. We weren't real sure how it was going to work or anything, so we didn't like polish it off real nice.
Right.
And I went out there and raced it, and I passed. I came from like 4th or 5th, and I passed Earhart and won the race. And I was like, shit, this thing is really good. Like, it's better than I thought,
Okay.
And so we pulled it apart, and off the scene, I got a magazine somewhere, Dirt Wheels, but we pulled it apart, and the guys High Torque Dirt Wheels were there, and like, hey, we want to shoot this thing. So we pulled it apart and had it all painted up and polished up and got it all looking good and got it all done, and they shot it for Dirt Wheels, and I'll send you the picture of it. But
yeah, please do.
It turned out. I mean, what you see at the pace race is basically what we showed up with. But
yeah,
so we showed up with the first pace race in St. Louis, and we covered it up, and everybody kind of knew a little bit. Some people did, some people didn't, but we covered it up at the race, and people were like, "What's under there?" And kind of got a little hype around it and stuff. But
sure,
I went out and raced it, and I think I can't remember how I ended up like 6th or 7th or something, but I ended up stalling it, like I think in the heat race or maybe the main event, and because it had a flip seat on it, and I had a flip, and at the time, and like we just kind of got it going, so I was still figuring out how to start the thing, when we had the flip seat on, so I had to flip it up at the time to kick it, and so if you stalled it, it was a 98 YZ400 that's already a pain in the butt to start. Plus, you got to flip the seat up. So if you stall on the track, you're pretty much screwed.
Yeah. You might as well have had the big what do they call those things that you'd like put on the kicker? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like the remote, like engine starting, basically. You might as well have had one of those, because if you stalled it, you were screwed.
Yeah. So I mean, we had pretty. I mean, I raced that one race, and other than that, I think I practiced on it a couple times here and there. So it wasn't super familiar with it, but we went and did. I think we ended up like 6th. I think I stalled in the heat race, but I think I ended up 6th in the main.
Okay.
And I think we went to one other race after that, and then we went to Anaheim. I mean, by Anaheim, I had quite a bit of time on it, and I went out, and I think I came out like 4th or 5th, and I passed Travis and Harold and and Timmy. I think those are the main three guys, maybe Shane or somebody too, but passed all those guys and just checked out, was checking out and won, on that thing. And then when I won on the thing, everybody, Timmy and everybody are like sitting back there like, yeah, I think we need one of those. I mean, everybody could kind of see the writing on the wall at that point, this was in 98, or sorry, 99 was when this was for 99 season.
Yep.
And I was working so much at Laggers that year that I raced a limited schedule at the Nationals that year, because I was working so much, and just kind of, my parents were busy and couldn't really, I think, go to the races too much that year. And just the way everything kind of was, I think I only hit a couple races, but I remember going to High Point, and that was the year actually I went to Loretta. I also went to Loretta's on a dirt bike that year too.
Oh, okay.
So I went to High Point that year in 99, and I'm like, I was like, I'm only doing one race, and at the time Nationals, you run one pro moto one day and one pro moto on the next day at that time.
Yep.
I'm like, I don't want to sit around here all day long. I'm going to sign up for some more classes. I'm like, what can I ride? Well, I can ride all the pro-ams and the pros. So I rode 4 classes.
Oh my
You know,
gosh.
so I rode 3 Pro-Am classes and the pro class, and I was done by the end of the weekend. I was just worthless. And I think I got like 5th or 6th or something, maybe in the pro class. I can't remember. In the Pro-Ams, I think I got like 2nds and 3rds and stuff, but it was way more classes than I should have probably rode for the shape I was in at the time and not riding all the nationals that year.
Sure. But that was 99.
Yeah.
Did you end up riding that quad? Like, you rode that quad for a few years then, right?
Yeah, that was the only motocross YFZ quad that Lager built me. I only had that one for the motocross, and that was it.
Okay.
You know, and that was kind of, you know, the cool thing, or a different thing, I shouldn't say cool or different. It was different back then. Was you would buy a Lager chassis and you'd run it for 3 or 4 years. It's not like now people are like, oh, I rode 3 races on that bike, I gotta get a new one.
Scrap it. Yeah.
Yeah, scrap that thing. Sell it to somebody else. You know, I mean, we would ride. You'd buy a 250R chassis from Lager, and you would race that thing for 4 years. You just end of the year strip it down. If it has a crack in it, okay, we'll weld that up, repowder coat it. You know, put some new bearings in it, go out for the next year. But we were only running, you know, 5 motocross races than your local races. So it wasn't like you're running a bunch of races on like you are now. You're not running 12, 13 races on it.
Right.
But I mean, so we definitely got some more time out of bikes. I felt like then, you know, because then also you're building a one-off bike. You're not just can't go down the showroom and buy a bike either, too. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, that wasn't realistic. And guys like Lager, like, they could only put out so many builds or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, it probably wasn't feasible, like, money wise, to just build these bikes every year either. So so yeah, that's what I thought is you ran it for a number of years. So I guess I don't know what year it would have been, but shortly thereafter, at some point, is where the Cannondale factored in, right? So I'm fascinated to hear about that, because that was a short-lived Cannondale period for you, was factored in there too.
Yeah. So 99, I did limited season in nationals. And then so 2000, I came back and raced from then on, I raced all of them.
Okay.
Just that 99 year was just a weird year, but, you know, because I think we kind of focused on that stadium race series that year.
Well, which was kind of as big as anything, really, wasn't it?
This, you know, the guys that put on that race, that was, you know, Pace, Clear Channel, Live Nation, that whole group, you know, those guys, you know, it went away, which sucks. But to me, the Mickeys and that Clear Channel stadium stuff was one of the best things for ATV racing, maybe besides WPSA. You know, WPSA had the TV coverage, but that Mickey series was awesome because it was, you know, you go to stadium, you go to Jack Murphy, there's 60,000 people there watching.
Sure.
I mean, there's trucks, there's bikes, there's buggies, there's quads. But when we started doing that Clear Channel stuff, it started out as we were the sideshow for the monster trucks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I almost feel like they kind of fooled the fans a little bit, because they'd go, yeah, monster truck show and quads. And then you'd get there and it was mainly a quad race with monster trucks as the sideshow. Like, the track, it was a full blown, they had triples, they had tabletops, they had doubles, they had flips. I mean, it was a full blown quad stadium track, and they would run monster trucks around for halftime entertainment, basically, between the quad races. And,
that's awesome.
You know, and they ran the dirt bikes too. So it was, you know, dirt bikes, quads, and monster trucks kind of as a sideshow. Sure. So, I mean, you really got to give it up to those guys, because we go into, you know, Anaheim and there'd be 50,000 people there. I mean, it sucks that they don't have that anymore, because it was, as a racer, you go there and, you know, you would win, or you'd hear the crowd cheering. They do, you know, you felt like a supercross rider going to those things, you know. I really wish they would still do that, just because it was so good for our sport. I felt like it introduced a lot of people to ATVs that may not have been an ATV person. And we go and people would come up and, you know, I went to the last one. It was, you know, because there's a lot of them in California, and they would come San Diego and Anaheim, and they'd be like, I was in San Diego. You know, that race was awesome. You guys were, so, you know, the entertainment of the show. Yeah. So those things were really awesome to do.
I think that's such a big thing too with ATV racing is like everybody that's exposed to it sees how badass it is, right? It's just getting it to the people to be able to see it, I guess. And that's where we're lacking nowadays. But yeah, so I'll let you continue on there.
Oh, so I mean that's kind of what I feel bad for, like Chad and Joel in a way.
Yeah.
And the pros that are out there now, because they don't get to experience that. That was such a cool experience in ATV racing, running in front of those crowds like that, if someone could see those guys now, and what they could do compared to even what we were doing, it would be, I think, a good draw and a good thing for the sport. Like you're saying, to introduce all those people to it, it was such a cool learning experience or personal experience for me and the guys that were there. It meant a lot. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But so getting back to the Cannondale stuff,
because that must have been right about that time, right? Like 2000 or 2001 or something.
Yeah. So the stadium races, we went from, I think they started in 97. 97. I think 97, 98, they started in there.
Okay.
And then until I think 2004, 5.
Okay.
Had to be 5. Had to be 5 was the last year.
Yeah, there was in 2005 because there's those pictures of Natalie at the beginning of the Honda period there.
Yeah,
so
because you post that picture, I think, on me the other day, and that was 05 bike.
Okay.
So 2005 was the last year. So they had a pretty good run, and as it started, we were kind of the sideshow, but at the end, it was, like I said, full blown. We were, the ATVs pretty much were the show. They kind of like, oh yeah, monster truck show, get all the kids to come. And then it was like, yeah, the monster trucks run for 5 minutes, but the quads right here, 90% of the time.
Right. Yeah.
But that Cannondale thing, it all kind of started. I was out of Glen Helen riding, and this guy comes up to me, named Steve Quate. He's a sales rep for Cannondale. He was a bicycle guy, and then when they started the moto stuff, he was all into motorcycles. And then they started the ATV stuff. He was out of Glen Helen, I think, riding one of the dirt bikes or Cannondale bikes, and kind of trying to promote it. Like, hey, you guys, why don't you ride it? And if you like it, you can go to this dealer and buy one. Well, he was out of Glen Helen and saw me ride and came over talking to me like, hey, bud, what's going on? We got a Cannondale quad. You should try this thing out. And I was like, yeah, right, yeah, okay. But the funny part is, real quick, so this guy Steve Quate, him and I, long story short, he's really into fitness. He became my trainer for a while.
Oh wow!
And then we're still friends. Like I live in St. George. He lives in Park City, but he drives to St. George to go to California still, because he's still a bicycle rep. Doing bicycle rep stuff, but he stops by and sees me all the time. I mean, we became this whole Cannondale thing. We really bonded over it and became.
That's awesome.
Down the road, but
that's awesome.
So yeah, he's like, hey, you ride this thing, and I rode it, and I'm like, the guy has a brand new quad, new quad, is 4-stroke, and it's production, I'll give it a shot. So I rode it, and I'm like, hey, this thing is actually not that bad. And I'm like, we're buying chassis, we're buying dirt bikes to put this thing together. I'm spending 20 grand on this, put this bike together, and then I can go over here and buy one for 6,000 or 5,000, whatever they were at the time.
Yep.
And it's not bad, and it's like kind of like buying a 250R back in the day, and we'll just put a front end on it, and maybe a swing arm or whatever, and you throw a few parts at it and not have to go hog wild and buy 2 machines to make one.
Yeah. Well, at that time it was kind of before its time, really. Yeah. Like that chassis setup and whatever, like, was kind of the first of its era, but again, it was like kind of before its time.
Yeah. And I was still, at that time, I think I just had kind of quit working for Mark. Okay. I was working construction for one of my friends, Steve Owens, driving a water truck. Work construction. He actually raced the stadium races.
Oh wow! Okay. So there's all kinds of connections going on.
Yeah.
Right now.
There's long stories everywhere in this whole deal.
Right.
But I'm working for Steve, driving a water truck, and I end up meeting Steve Owens, and I end up meeting this Steve Quate that's the sales rep for Cannondale.
Yep.
And we're bullshitting at the track. He's trying to get me to ride this thing. And I'm like, oh, he's like, where do you live at? And I would tell him, I live in Marietta. He's like, oh, you do? I live in Willamar, which is like the next city over. It's like, you can't tell the difference.
Okay.
You know, and he tells me where he lives. Well, my friend that I'm working for actually lives like 3 blocks from this guy.
Oh my gosh.
And so the guy I'm working for has an acre house on an acre, and then he has an empty acre next to him. And he has a little tiny supercross arena cross track on this acre that we go out and practice. He has lights and stuff, and we practice at night on it.
Oh, wow.
For the stadium races.
All right.
So the Cannondale rep's like just a block away. So him and I, we all kind of become friends and everything. And he's like, yeah, ride this thing. And I ride it. And he's like, you know, sales rep guy, we got to get you on this bike. We got to get you on this bike. I'll talk to one of my dealers and I'll see if I can get you a loaner. You know, we'll loan it to the dealership, but it's for you to use, and you can ride it and promote it and all this stuff. I'm like, it's like a factory ride kind of.
I was gonna say, at this point, this is a very big deal because nobody's got anything like this.
No, yeah. So I'm like, all right, sweet, you know. And so I'm like, all right, well, let's get one. So Alba at the time was one of his bigger shops he had that took on Cannondale. So he gets me a bike through Alba, and so I take it to Mark, and Mark looks at it. Mark builds a front end for it, builds a swing arm. You know, we get it all kind of done up, and Billy from Quad Tech, I take over. You know, the thing has those headlights in it that look like eyeballs.
Yeah.
And we're like, this thing looks horrible. Like, we got to do something about this thing. So I take it over to Billy, and I'm like, you know, because he's making all the carbon fiber hoods and everything for Quad Tech, you know,
Yep.
time.
Yep.
And he's like, you know, Billy and I was Billy's first customer. He's like, I would never be doing this crap. You drug me into this, you know, because of you on this whole deal. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry about it. But him and I became really good friends. And actually, he's my brother-in-law now.
Oh, wow. Yeah. He's a great guy.
Yeah. He married my wife's sister, and that's how they met, was from us.
Man, there's connections everywhere in this whole thing.
Yeah. So he's my brother-in-law now. But at the time, I take it to him, and he's like, this thing's ugly. You know, like, all right, well, let's put a hood on it. Let's figure it out. Let's got to fix it. So I come back over to the shop, and he has this hood for this thing. And it's, you know, a normal 50-yard hood, you know, or Honda hood is like 6 inches or 8 inches wide.
Yeah. I was going to say, this thing's got to be massive.
This thing is like 1.5 feet wide. It basically just covers the whole front plastic.
Yeah. It's a cow catcher.
Yeah, you know, but it restyles and it has the hood built into it and everything. And
right.
And I go over there, and I'm like, first thing I see the thing, and I'm like, oh my God, this thing looks familiar. I'm looking at it. I'm like, Billy. And he's like, what? I go, that thing looks like a sperm. He's like, what? This has this big round head on it, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So we nicknamed it that, you know, just for us. But
that is funny.
Yeah. So we put this thing on, and it looked better for sure. But like, you posted that picture of that red bike, and that was that first one we built.
Okay.
And I got that graphics kit. I can't remember who made that. Maybe InStyle, I think.
Okay.
But that graphics kit, like, if you walked up close to it, it was all hand cut. Like, I took the graphics kit and spent probably 3 hours cutting this. Every stripe on that thing is all cut out from that graphics kit, laid on there. Like, that bike turned out really good, but it was a lot of work to make it look good, or make it look acceptable. But
well, yeah, the thing is that it looked good. Probably didn't sound that good. It probably sounded like the thing was going to blow itself apart, knowing it was a Cannondale.
So I got that first bike, and that was right when they first came out. And I talked to Wayne and Henson, and he's like, "Yeah, bring it up. We'll see if we can make a clutch basket for that thing." I'm like, "All right." So I bring the thing up there, and I ride it up into one of the bays, and then there's a wall, and then the next bay over at their shop. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's like,
I haven't.
Kind of, it's like a bunch of bays, but it's a whole complex, but they have all these garage doors and everything.
Sure.
Brian's in the other room on the other side of this bay, and I bring it in. I'm like kind of revving it up, sitting there. Brian runs out and is all, "Shut it off. shut it off. It's going to blow up. It's going to blow up. He has no idea what's even in there. He just hears the thing rattling and clanking.
Oh my gosh.
Normal Cannondale, making all of its noise. He comes out running. It's like, turn it off. It's going to blow up. I'm like, this is how these things are. He's like, oh my God,
Oh, that is funny.
Wayne cracks the cover on that thing and looks at it and is like, I'm not touching this thing.
Nope.
Just take it out of here. Just take it out of here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's, so I get that bike from Alba, and that kind of started my whole Alba relationship with Kory Hove. Kory was one of the most awesome people to ever deal with. He would give anybody the shirt off his back if you asked for it. Whether you need it or not, if you asked for it, he would give it to you. He was one of the best sponsors I've ever had, as far as helping me out and really helped me in my career and helped me get to a whole nother level.
Yeah, that ended up being an awesome relationship, obviously, for you, because you were an Alba rider the whole second half of your career.
Yeah, and they got there known by, basically taking a Banshee and putting a bunch of parts on it, and you finance the whole thing and buy a Banshee, it's all done up. So they're a Cannondale dealer. Quate gets me this bike from them to go out and do all this stuff, and I go race. I think I raced stadium races on it one year and some stuff, and Quate's like, we need and this is when Nax kind of got their Cannondale deal, and John was kind of there too, doing his deal.
Yep.
And Cannondale was, they were the ones making a real production bike that you could go race or go buy. So it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And the thing was ahead of its time for sure. It had its problems for sure.
It had its problems, but it had its perks too. Like, again, it was just too early. And maybe it was, I don't know, maybe that they didn't have the right text. Maybe it was thrown together too early. I don't know exactly. I mean, you know better than I in that regard, but man, if they would have just been able to take a little bit more time, and refine that thing, man, like that was a really good machine.
Yeah. And so, Steve's the sales rep, and he's pumping this thing. Like, you gotta race this thing and blah, 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 and really getting fired up about it. And by then I think I won the Pro-Am 4-stroke championship in 2000 and 2002. Okay. So this had to be like end of 2002, 2003, right in there, and he's like, we gotta step this up. And, Alba said they'll help you out. And they got this cross country bike. Have you ever thought about racing cross country? And I'm like, I'm not a cross country guy, but if someone's going to give me a bike and wants me to go race it, if I can afford to go do that, I'll go do it. So, yeah. So that's, then Kory's like, at Alba's like, yeah, we'll give you another bike. We'll get you another bike. And so I think I got a I can't remember the thing was called, a Blaze cross. There was a Blaze. Yeah. The cross country bike was a Blaze. So they gave me a Blaze. And my whole deal was like, I'm working, I got to go run, GNCC. I'm working in California. I got to go run GNCC. I just raced the stadium races. I want to race nationals. Like, between GNCC and nationals, like Wesley does it now, but like, you're gone every weekend. I'm like, how am I going to freaking work and paint? I got a house payment now. I got, all my bills. I'm like, how am I going to do this? So Jimmy White was running, was one of the main people at stadium races running it, but he was also working for Kenda at the time, and Jimmy and I, became pretty good, decent friends, and I respect Jimmy a lot, and he's done a lot in the industry and done a lot of things. And, now he works for the competition for me personally right now. Yeah. Right. We still talk once in a while and see him at events, and, we're friends for sure, I would say. We don't talk all the time, but anyway, at the time Jimmy's doing the stadium races and doing the Kenda thing, and I'm like, man, I got to figure out how I can go do this. Kory's going to give me bikes and parts and support me like that. I just got to figure out how to get around, kind of. So, I don't know how it got started, but I started talking to Jimmy, and Jimmy's like, Kenda's like, I think I can get you some money, to help you get around a little bit from Kenda. And I'm like, all right. So I'm like, I don't have to pay for tires now. I got a little bit of money for gas money. Mm-hmm. I think I can do this. So I basically like, I think the GNCC race was in Florida starting that year, and it was like a week away or something. I didn't have a bike yet. They had one on the floor, and this whole thing, like Jimmy's like, all right, I can get you some money. So I'm like, all right, I need to quit my job, get a bike, and get to Florida. Like
in a week. Yeah, in a week.
Yeah, in a week. So I quit. My buddy was pissed because I pretty much came in and said, today's my last day. I got to leave in 2 days to go to Florida for a GNCC race. He's just like, because he went from he had one water truck. He hired me and was building the second one.
Okay.
So I was his first and only employee, and I'm quitting on him, and he's like, what the heck? It's a good friend. It's a good friend. And I'm like, I'm out of here tomorrow. I'm not coming back tomorrow, basically.
Right. Jeez.
So that kind of strained that relationship for a couple of years. We're good friends now, but he was not real happy with me at that point.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But it was like, it was my one shot. I was like, if I didn't do it then, I didn't know if it was ever going to happen.
Bikes, Trikes, and Quads LLC has been supplying riders with aftermarket components from the industry's top brands for over a decade. With over 80,000 products in stock for your ATVs, UTVs, metric and HD motorcycles, dirt bikes, and snowmobiles, Bikes, Trikes, and Quads LLC can tend to all your power sports needs, from hard parts to riding gear. Bikes, Trikes, and Quads also offers hard-to-find used parts for your vintage dirt bike, ATV, three-wheeler, or snowmobile. Use discount code ATVMX at www.btqllc.com for 10% off of orders of $100 or more. We're grateful to have Bikes, Trikes, and Quads LLC digging deep with us. Thank you, BTQ LLC. We are proud to be partnered with Gripped Gloves. Gripped is an ATV rider owned and operated brand with the rider in mind and the goal of keeping costs affordable. The Michigan-based family operation recognizes riders' desire to showcase their identity. Owner David Payne's love for eccentric colorways and crazy patterns shows in his product, something not often found in the work of big manufacturers. Here to push stereotypes and limitations, Grip's drive is to produce a glove with cool colors and designs that won't break the bank. With comfort and quality as key motivators, the family affair is constantly working on the next more innovative and improved glove. Get a grip on life, join the Gripped movement, because no one wants a bland glove. Check them out today at grippedgloves.com, that's GRIPT gloves.com, and use discount code DIGGINGDEEP10 to save at checkout. Just like the sport of ATV motocross as a whole, our Digging Deep community is brought together by the love for racing that we all share. Our sport is compiled of many great people, and leading that charge is the Launderville family at Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply. This racing-owned family business is a steel and concrete supplier serving the entire United States. Launderville Steel is a full-service steel supplier of new and surplus steel, aluminum, and stainless steel products, headlined by their 4130 chromoly tubing and plate used in the building of chassis for ATVs and UTVs, off-road truck racing, late model dirt and pro tractor pulling series, drag racing, and more. Launderville Steel loves their racing just as much as we do, but don't forget about their concrete division as well. With over 25 years of experience, the concrete division can supply everything you need to complete your next business or personal project. Their central Midwest location enables LSE to easily serve customers across the United States. For a quote, additional info, answers to more of your questions, or to talk a little racing, head over to laundervillesteel.com or give them a call today. We are proud to be partnered with yet another racer-owned company. Thank you, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply. Thanks for listening, and remember to support our partners. Now back to the show.
I had a box van at the time, and I went down to Alba, and I picked up a quad for cross country, and so I can't remember if I raced at Cannondale at the Nationals or just that year. I know I still had the hybrid bike. I think I took it too, but I was basically out of a box van that year, and I drove to the first round in GNCC. I left my house. It was from California to Florida. It took me 48 hours. I stopped in Texas. I stopped in Texas for 2 hours and slept. Went to Orlando, picked up John Pellin from the airport. We drove straight to the track, and they were having practice at that first round. And I unloaded the bike, never rode it before, put a twist throttle on it, went out and rode practice on it. And I went to the hotel, and I think it was about 5 o'clock. I passed out. like I was smoked. I'd been up for like 48 hours or something stupid and slept for 2 hours. Yeah. Just running on adrenaline. I passed out forever. And then I go to that race that next day, and, and Nax is there. They got their semi, and, I can't remember who they had racing cross country at the time, but they had a couple guys there and stuff. And John Pellin from ATV Scene and I became pretty good friends through my whole career. Him and I were like, John always loved me, and John and I we'd do things and have crazy adventures, and he was always around and always kind of promoting me shamelessly for no reason. I don't know why, but him and I I kind of clicked. And
sure,
if anybody who knows John knows his love of the sport, and he would do anything for the sport to make it grow, and back when
he was such a staple at that period too, right? I mean,
oh yeah. Like ATV Scene was where you went to get your information on anything, because all the web stuff just started, and that was where you went, before ATV riders, before Harlan or anything. John was the guy. He was the guy at a motocross national that would be standing in the middle of the track with a point and shoot digital camera that you'd have to swerve to miss because he's trying to get a shot. And you're like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, I got to get close because my camera's only 1.2 megapixels. He's out there in the middle of I'm like, dude, I had to swerve around you in the middle of a race. And he's like, well, you didn't hit me, did you? I'm like, oh my God. Like, come on, John.
Oh my gosh.
So I show up there, and, and John's like, hey, can you, I want to go to all the nationals, but I don't have the money. I'm like, all these races and I have the money. Can I, kind of worked out a deal. Like, he's going to tag along with me. We're going to road trip together out of this box van for all these races and stuff. So,
okay.
So I picked him up at the airport, and we go there, and he's like going to kind of document this whole thing. And that way we cover all the races and all this stuff. So we go to the race, and that was the first year that GNCC, I think it might've been the only year, they had the pro class and pro production. So they started pro production for basically, it was like, I'd almost say like an XC2 kind of deal, but it was, you basically had two lines of pros. You had a pro, aftermarket chassis class, and then you had a production class.
Yep.
And so we start that race. I've never raced a GNCC before, so I don't even know what to expect, but it's in Florida, and it's sand whoops and nice and wide. I go out, and I think at about halfway through, 3/4 of the way through, I was leading the race on time. Pellin's over there just fist pumping on the side of the track, all pumped up, and the owner of Cannondale, Mr. Montgomery, was actually at the event. And,
okay.
He's over there all pumped up, and the Cannondale guys are all there because they're there with the Nax people, and it's the first big race for their team, so they're all there, and they're all pumped up because it's Cannondale winning the race.
Yeah.
And I think on the last lap or I might have just got the white flag, and I go between two trees and just stack the thing up and just ram a tree, cartwheel. I'm flat out in the middle of the track, blocking the track. People are yelling, screaming at me. I'm all upside down, tied up in the trees, and
sure.
I get it out, and I go take off, and the frame is just twisted on it, and it won't even. I couldn't even make. I can't remember. I wouldn't go left or wouldn't go right. It wouldn't turn one way at all.
Oh my god!
So if I wanted to make like a right turn, I had to do a left turn to circle around to go to the right. And I rode it back, and they're all bummed out. But they were all pumped too because they're like, "Oh, dude, you're winning!" And
they saw the potential of the thing.
Yeah, exactly. So they're, I'm like, "Oh man, I totaled this bike. The frame's done on it. I got to get a frame." I'm like, "How am I going to fix this thing?" I'm like, "Oh God, something on my bike. I wrecked it. It's junk." I'm all panicked, and they're just like, "Oh, that was so awesome." They're so elated. They're like, "Hey, tell you what, if you bring that thing back to Pennsylvania, we'll frame it out for you." And I'm like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Dude, that's like a far drive. Like, I barely got here on gas money." And they're like, "Well, you know what? If you come up, we'll frame it. It'll take us a day or two. We always have testing to do. You can do some testing for us and turn in your receipts. We'll cover your gas. We'll cover your hotel because you're doing testing for us, and we'll swap it out." And I'm like,
"Oh,
so
wow.
I go there, get a new frame for free, and you're covering my expenses to get there and my hotel." I'm like, "This is awesome." Like, yeah, all right, I can do this. This saves me fuel basically for the next race and keeps me kind of busy, and I get a ride in between the race.
And at this time in ATVs, this is unheard of at this time. So this is awesome for you.
Yeah, it's awesome. So we go up there and I go do some testing. Pellin comes along with me. because yeah, basically his ride.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
You're
so
attached at the hip at this point.
yeah. So the whole time in the ride in the van, all I hear is the keyboard. The whole time in the van, I'm just like, oh my God. But he's over there, trying to post things and writing stories for his website and everything.
Yep.
So I go up there and test. We meet all the people at the factory and the testing department and kind of get to know everybody that's there, that whole group, and they frame that out. And John Harriman, that was kind of in charge, it's kind of like, I guess, the GM or something, or kind of in charge of a lot of stuff, he's like, you guys are awesome. Thanks for everything you guys are doing, blah, blah, blah. Do you guys want a mountain bike? And John and I are like, what? He's like, yeah. He throws down a catalog, their Cannondale catalog. He's like, hey, you guys pick out a mountain bike. You guys are here helping us out doing testing and stuff. John, you're writing all these stories for us, for, promoting Cannondale and showing what's going on and all this stuff. You guys just pick one out. Just take one. John and I are like, what? Like, seriously? Like, these bikes are like $5,000.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, we want this bike. And they're like, hey, these bikes are all custom built, right? Kind of, like you guys, because we saw they walked us through the whole bicycle factory and
sure.
Like, yeah, we paint them this, and then they go over here and they get these parts. Like, can we get a bike a different color? And like, this, sure thing. So John and I get these bikes that are like one-off bikes. They're like a color. It's like, we want this color of bike with these components. Like, they give us these two bikes. So we have these two Cannondale one-off bikes,
Oh my gosh.
But I think about that time, I think John got hurt. John was doing a lot of testing for him. John got hurt. I can't remember if he got hurt testing for them or what happened, but he stopped testing. I can't remember the whole story behind that.
Okay.
But they kind of needed a test guy. So they're like, hey, can you come back and do some more testing for us? And I'm like, sure. And for anybody that thinks testing quads is fun, it's not. It's absolutely not. Go to Pennsylvania and ride a quad for 3 hours. Have to ride a quad for 3 hours in February.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
No.
It's freezing cold, almost snowing, muddy. And like, okay, we need to put time on this, part, go out and ride it for 2 or 3 hours, come in pit, and we'll send you back out,
Oh my gosh.
So that year we probably went over there 6 or 7, 8 times throughout the year. Okay. For like a week, and I would basically, they'd pay for my fuel to get there, pay for my hotel, and I would test, and basically I can't remember if they were paying me a little bit, but it wasn't much to test, but they were covering expenses, and that was the biggest thing for me that year. Is I was doing so much traveling that, like, okay, I turned in my receipts. Okay, it was that paid for my fuel to and from a race, and gave me somewhere to ride, gave me somewhere to train, basically on a bike that wasn't mine.
Right. Well, yeah, to have that affiliation with the brand had to be a huge thing too. And I think that, people probably have a certain taste in their mouth, like when they think of Cannondale dirt bikes and ATVs. But Cannondale, the brand, is a big, gnarly, awesome bike brand. So, I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah. And I got to know, the guys in the testing department, the guys in the engine development department. I mean, I got to know all those people really, really well that year. And it was an awesome experience, getting to do all that year. But I mean, the ATVs were keeping them alive at the time, and that they were hemorrhaging money like you could not believe on stuff. I mean, it was crazy. They had the NAX team going and all that stuff. And I mean, they were definitely out there trying to do good. The quads were kind of keeping going. Dirt bikes were just doing
that was a mess. Yeah, that was a mess.
But I mean, that thing unfortunately kind of came to an end. I had to be the end of that year. Yeah. Just they got bought out by somebody and got all restructured, and they just shut down the quad, shut down the bikes. That whole motorsports division got shut down.
Yeah,
which is really unfortunate. They had some new stuff they were working on that was better. But it's just, I think it was too many issues that people were kind of getting a bad taste in their mouth. People would get bikes they wouldn't run, or they run for a little bit. I got pretty lucky, and everything that I ever got from them or had, I never had an issue with, fortunately. But we never built motors. I think we put pipes on stuff and map stuff, but we never we never really got too much into motor tuning or anything on those things, and they ran pretty good for what they were. And
Yeah.
But that GNCC season, man, that was a long one. That was that definitely. If you're a moto guy and you just kind of think GNCC guys, they just go out and go through the woods, go out and ride one. That definitely gave me a lot of respect for those guys. Like, I was like, oh, I can go out there. I can get a top 10, top 20, no problem. And I mean, I was miles behind those guys. I don't think that bike helped any, but it's a total different thing when you got to run that hard between those trees for that long. It's like Florida, I did real good. And then after that, it just got, I swear the tracks got narrower and narrower as they went on. And by the end of the season, the last race, I was like, get me out of here. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want anything to do with GNCC. People love it, but I am a moto guy. I am not a GNCC guy at all. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not doing this again.
Right. Yeah. It's cool to hear about that whole period in time, the Cannondale and all that stuff. Like you said, I think that some people lucked out because my dad, Jansen Motorsports or Jansen Racing at the time, was a Cannondale dealer. And there's some guys to this day that like still have them, and that swear by them or whatever, but it's cool to hear about that. So if that was what, 2003?
That was 2000. No, that was 2002.
Okay. Yeah. Because then the next year would have been when the pro production thing started, right? Because then once you have been on a Z400 the next year.
Yeah. So what happened with that was I got a call from Laz at GT Cycles.
Okay.
And towards the end of the year, and Pellin was that was the first year of the ATV 12 Hours America for Dodge. Okay. And he calls me and says, hey, I want to see if you want to run this race. I'm getting a brand new Z400. I want to see if you want to run this race this first year on it. And I got Johnny Gallagher and I can't remember the other kid's name right now, but I got another kid and you guys can be a team. I'll build the bike, brand new Z400. You guys can be one of the first people out there to ride this thing and race this race on it. I'm like, sweet, I'll have to tear up my own bike. I'm in, I'll go race this race. It's a race for Pellin, helps him, him and I are buddies. Like, I'll go out and race his race, helps him out. I got a team. I don't have to, doesn't cost me any money.
Right.
All this whole time I'm like, I'm just like floating from race to race, basically. My parents are helping me out a little bit, but I mean, it's pretty much, I'm skating by the whole time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, we'll go ride this Z400. So we show up at the race. Joe and I ride it a little bit before the race, just kind of get a feel for it, just around the pits and stuff. And I think we ended up getting third at that race. And like everybody's, I think Walsh and I can't remember who else was on his team. We got third, but they were on hybrids, and we're on a Z400 that's pretty much stock, on this 12-hour race. And Johnny and I end up, the kid that rode with us rode, like Johnny and I would do like 5 or 6 laps. We gather for like an hour and 15 minutes. The other kid gets on and goes like 2 laps or a lap.
Okay.
It's like, okay, I'm tired. You guys switch. So John and I end up running like out of 12 hours. I think we both rode like 6.
Okay.
I was just smoked, but I was like, that thing was pretty good. And that was like the last race of the season. Went from there and I drove home. And the Alba relationship had grown quite a bit by then. And that Z400 came out, and they're like, hey, Cannondale's going away. I'm like, I'm gonna go back and race nationals. We're gonna have pro production at nationals next year. And you can kind of see the writing on the wall. I think Honda might have had the 400 EX, but everybody kind of had this feeling like something was coming, I think.
Okay.
And you could really tell, the production stuff with Cannondale, now the Z400, all the stuff in the dirt bikes. Honda was building the CRF now. They kind of like, you kind of have this feeling like everything had this momentum going. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of tell like that was going to be the way of the future.
Yep.
So I talked to Kory about it. I'm like, hey, I want to ride that Z's out. There's a pro production class. I think it's going this way. I really want to, get ahead of this and let's do this. So if we're going to do it, let's do it full tilt. So he's like, okay, I'll give you 3 Z400s. They're the shops. I'll give you 3 Z400s to ride. We'll build all the motors. you take them back, race the nationals, ride pro, and I'm like, I'll ride pro production on them. And I go, I'll ride pro on them. I felt really strongly that's, going to be the way of the future. Let's just go out and run the thing. Cause I go, maybe next year there is no pro class. If there's no pro class, we got more time on this thing. We'll figure it out, we'll make it work. So I rode stadium races. I think that might've been the last year of the stadium races. No,
okay.
Because we went longer. We went 05. So that year at stadium races, I rode a Z400. Dana, I think Timmy got hurt and didn't race. Dana rode his CRF, I think he had. And Dana I might have won a race or two maybe, but Dana just killed me because I'm on a Z400 and he's on a CRF.
Right. I mean, I was literally going to ask you, that had to feel like bringing a knife to a gunfight.
Yeah. And before the season started, I already committed to riding this thing in pro production at nationals. And I'm just like, oh geez, here we go. So I got 3 bikes from them. I raced stadium races. I go to race nationals. I got this box van. I got 3 Z400s stood up in the back of. I show up and I start racing the nationals, and it was all I could do to keep one of those bikes running. Like I had one stripped down to like pretty much a bare frame by halfway through the season, like after like 2 or 3 races. The other one, I think I had the motor out of it or something. I was just trying to keep one bike going.
Yeah.
And we got about half of the races, and my dad, I was going by myself to the races that year, and my dad is like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, he's like, you're getting your ass kicked out there, like in the pro class. I'm like, I know, I'm riding a freaking Z400 against hybrids. I'm just getting smoked.
Yeah.
He's like, you need to get off that thing, at least in the pro class. Just get off that thing, go out, because you're not helping yourself. So I'm like, I was that year Lone Star. I got all the parts from Lone Star for that Z400. They gusted the frames, everything for me, got all the parts and everything. And Butler was working there, which had worked at Lager's, originally when I was working there at Lager's. So Scott and I were pretty close. He was, and actually he kind of started wrenching for me a little bit at the Nationals, kind of like halfway through this. Actually, in 2000, this was 2003. So 2002, he wrenched for me for a little bit.
Okay.
As well. So at the MX Nationals. So I called Scott and I'm like, Scott, I still had my Lager bike, but wanted to do a Lone Star because it was all Lone Star stuff. And I go, Scott, I need a bike. And at the time I bought a CRF 450 just to ride for a dirt bike for fun.
Sure.
And he goes, all right, well, let me see what I can do. He calls Dan, the owner of Lone Star, and goes, all right, we'll have you a bike. We'll have you all the parts. We'll ship it to Wayne's, PEPs. We'll have all the parts for you in a week and a half.
Okay.
I was like, what? So they built me a CRF bike for a week and a half. So I pulled apart my dirt bike, put this whole bike together. We got it all built. I think I rode it once or twice, and we went to it was in Indiana. I can't remember the name of that place now.
Okay.
But there was I think it was Indiana, or it was either Indiana or
was it Iowa or Illinois? Lincoln Trail? Lincoln Trail. Yeah. Okay.
So I showed up on Lincoln Trail riding the Z400 in the production class and the hybrid in the pro class. And I think I got like a third or fourth. Like I think I battled the Jeremiah. I think I finished right off the podium. I battled the Jeremiah like most of the race, but at that time you had to have a 440 and that dirt bike was a 450.
Right.
Well, I didn't have time to do anything. So we just threw the motor in there. I'm like, oh, we're going to run it. And it's kind of like, normally we didn't do stuff like that, but like, I don't have time. So this is what it is. If we get tore down, we get tore down.
Yep.
So we ran at that race and then I think after that race, we had like a 3-week or 4-week break between that and High Point. So I ran that race, did pretty good on it. So like, okay, after that race, we already had plans. We had the D-stroke coming forward, everything. We pulled the motor out. We were going to D-stroke it for High Point. So we got the motor, tore the motor out, D-stroked it, didn't touch it at all, just put D-stroke kit in it because that's kind of all we had time to do.
What you had to do, yeah.
So after Lincoln Trail, Pellin calls me. He's like, hey, I'm going to a Yamaha PR event in California. Do you want to be my test rider for the event? He goes, I think it's going to be something really good. Like, okay, Suzuki came out, Yamaha's come out with something, and like at the time, or Yamaha still, every time they come out with something, whether it be the 400 dirt bike, now you look back, or the YZ 450, or the 450 quad, or whether it be a Rhino or whatever. Every time they came out with something, it was
innovative.
It was very innovative, very ahead of its time.
Yep.
So it was like, oh man, if they're coming out with something, it has to be good, especially with the dirt bike, that they launched that and all this stuff. So like, all right, I'll be your test rider.
Okay.
So after Lincoln Trail, we show up there and they launched that quad, and I got to be, his guy at the media event, one of the first people to ride that quad. I met all the Yamaha guys there. Kind of, if you back up a little bit, the testing department called me a couple of years earlier than that and met me out at a track, and they wanted to ride my hybrid, and they rode it and kind of, yeah, it's cool. It's not bad, and kind of didn't say too much, and all right. And never heard anything from them again. All right. Well, that's, okay. There's always rumors that, so-and-so sent a bike to Honda and had this built, and Cowie did this, and
sure,
Honda, Yamaha has, so when we, for that press release, we kind of knew they had an idea what was going on, and there's gonna be something good. But we show up there, and it's, the bike that it was light years better than that Suzuki.
Yeah. They weren't even in the same category.
Yeah, we kind of go from a trail bike kind of to more of a race bike, So it was like, oh my God, this thing is awesome. And Pellin being Pellin, he's all pumped. Oh, this thing is the best thing ever. I'm gonna, I'll write a story about this. And he's like, he's the kind of the big internet media guy at the time.
Yeah.
And so
he's the kingpin.
So we ride these things, and then at the end of riding them all, they go, okay. So they tell all the media guys, all right, so here's the bike and all this stuff, and they go, and to top it all off, they go, these bikes are for you got media guys to take home. They go, this is a production bike, and we're shipping to dealers next week or whatever, like within a week or something. They're like, we have production done. It's going out the door. Dealers are going to have them before the end of the month. And these bikes, you guys can take with you right now. If you have a way to, I think they might have told before, like, be prepared to take something home with you or whatever. But they're like, yeah, these are your guys' media bikes. Take them.
Do
what you want with them. So Pellin and I are like, oh my God, let me get this bike. Like, this is a perfect pro production bike. Like, I call, Scott I kind of felt bad because Scott and Dan just built me this hybrid bike like a month earlier, and like within a week or so, got me all the parts to build it. So I'm like, Scott, like, I got this bike. We need to get this bike ready. Like, he's like, well, what is it? We're telling about it and all stuff. So I think I got the bike. I think I met him at Wayne's maybe or somewhere, and he took the bike back to Lone Star, and they built a front end for it, built an axle for it, and I think maybe a steering stem. I can't remember what exactly. I had to go back and look at the picture to see what was on the bike, but it had some parts on it. And Wayne built the shocks off of just what they told him on the specs. And Wayne never even saw the bike, I don't think, other than dropping it off originally.
Okay.
And then one of the guys from Arizona was coming to High Point. He hauled it out for High Point. So I mean, it was, when it showed up at High Point, I had never even rode the bike before, other than the stock bike. Like, I didn't know how the shocks were going to work. I didn't know how the front end was going to work. Like, we just threw I think we might have had a GYTR pipe on it that we threw on it or something, just because that was, I mean, the bike came out the launch was 3 weeks before.
There's no parts developed for this thing yet at that time.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of the pioneer part still. Like, again, like, you're really leading the charge on a lot of these stages of ATV racing. Kory, what do you say? So we've been talking for 2 hours almost. There's a ton of the story left. Do you want to just hit pause on this thing now and then like do a second episode of this thing? Because we're probably only halfway through. To be continued. What an epic conversation, and we're only halfway through. Next week, you'll hear all about Kory Ellis debuting Yamaha's new YFZ 450 in 2003, winning nationals in 2004, riding for factory Suzuki, managing factory Suzuki, and so much more. Major thanks to tonight's featured guest, Mr. Kory Ellis. Thanks to producer Dallas Jansen, my brother, for all his hard work. Thanks to Brooke and AMA official Harv Whipple. Thanks to our donors like Justin Branham. Remember, you can find those donation links on our website. We appreciate those who have so graciously donated so much. Thanks to our partners, CSD Tires, shop.csdtires.com, Yamaha thanks to Blue Crew, Valvoline, Ssi Decals, DID Racing Chain, Namura Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Impact Solutions, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, Forworks Carbon, DP Brakes, Gripped Gloves, Factory 43, Bike Strikes and Quads LLC, and Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. Support the brands that support our show, and don't forget to use those codes to save. Find it all on our website, and be sure to click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner for all your gear and parts needs and to help us out. And most of all, thanks to you guys for listening. Our show merchandise, including Digging Deep shirts and hoodies, our Quad Guys Get Hot Chicks shirts and hoodies, back-to-back National Champ merch, and more are all available today at shop.diggingdeepatvmx.com. If you're looking for another easy way to help support us, visit our website and click the Buy Me a Coffee button. This allows you to set up a one-time or monthly contribution to support our efforts. Keep sending your questions, stories, and topics in to be featured on an upcoming episode, and don't hesitate to call into our voicemail line with them so we can play it on the show. That number is 920-569-3519. Follow the show on social media, Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, and myself, Kory Jansen, for additional content, coverage, and more fun stuff throughout the off-season. As for the podcast, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. All episodes, additional podcast providers, sponsor links, and discount codes, our show merchandise, fantasy info, and more can all be found on our website, diggingdeepatvmx.com, so check that out today. Be a friend, tell a friend, please download, subscribe, rate, review, and share. And with that, for Kory Ellis, Brooke Catherine, Dallas Jansen, and I'm your host, Kory Jansen. Thanks for listening to the #1 podcast in ATV racing. 3 million downloads and counting. Until next time, thanks for joining us and digging deep with the stars of ATV motocross. See you next week. Things are crashing and burning here at the Digging Deep podcast, much like the Titanic.
Those guys were hauling ass, for real.
I remember watching Doug Gus, I don't know who it was, Steel City, running the same times Friday afternoon as James Stewart was on Sunday back then. It was mental. I've never seen quads go that fast.
Quad leaders are freaking gnarly.